It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, and Jason are all here, and we've got lots of fun things to talk about. We'll take a look at the 45 best apps and games for the App Store Awards, review a few of them. I'll tell you the day that I'm going to die, thanks to my favorite app. We also have a game that all of us played 30 years ago that's back now for your iPad. That and a whole lot more coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is TWIT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 950, recorded Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. Whacking on the soccer wall. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we get together and talk about Apple Schnooze with the Apple Schnooze team. Joining us right now, Andy Anako from the library. Hi, Andrew.
Hello. Hey, I got a question that it's a light week, so maybe later on we can discuss this as a panel. When you're hanging a wreath on the front door, are you a bow at the top family or a bow at the bottom family?
Oh, that's a really interesting question.
Because I always put mine at the top, and as I was adjusting it, I'm like, why? It seems like this is a demographic. This is a thing that like Google and Facebook ads they will figure out which one you are and make our ad targeting decisions based on it, because there is something that tells us about you on where if you have a holiday wreath, where you put the bow. We won't discuss side bow people because those people have been reading too many design magazines.
Honestly, I think it's pretty clear that you should put the bow at the top. Now, Patrick Delahanty says put the bow at the bottom, but we're going to get into that in greater detail.
Yes. That's
likely going to be like the clip that goes on all the socials and all of that stuff. The bow, because that's what people care about. Alex Lindsay is also here from officehours.global. He
Hello.
has deeper issues to think about.
HDR, HLG versus PQ. This is what we talked about.
There you go. That's what counts. That's what matters.
Exactly. It's a religious issue. So we try to go very quickly. Some people are like HLG, and I'm like, the HLG curve just isn't as good as the PQ curve. So,
sometimes I wish I lived in Alex's head just to understand some of the things that he says. Also with us from sixcolors.com, Mr. Jason Snell.
Just happy to be part of the Apple News team. Big storm coming in, but then it's going to be clearing up. I'll be back later with the Apple weather.
And now with the traffic report, Captain Leo in the skies. No, we're not going to do that to you today because you tuned in a podcast, so you didn't have to listen to radio. I'm sad to say that the many of the staff at the radio station I used to work for, KFI in Los Angeles, have been laid off as radio continues its death spiral.
Terrestrial radio has been replaced by extraterrestrial radio.
Well, and I have to say, unless you're Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy, podcast ain't doing all that well either. There is a chill in the air with advertisers. I think they're very nervous. I don't know if it's us. Is it us, Jason Snell? You sell advertising. Is it me?
I don't sell advertising. I have people who do that for me because I don't want to do it because I've never wanted to do it. But
so they don't tell you, Jason, it's going to be. Yeah, it seems like it's slow.
It's a tough market. I mean, my big podcast over at Relay is doing okay, but even there, you can feel it, and it's a tougher sledding than it has been.
But when I say podcasts are struggling, people go, "Oh no, they're better than ever," and it's true. If you're a celebrity or you have one of the big
if you got smart lists, you're doing it okay, right?
Or if you enjoy talking about murder and the misery of other families that are left behind.
Right. If you're talking about Apple, a little tougher.
I think that the one of the things that you kind of see when you start to see this kind of stratification of that process is, I think this is one of the things that Twitter did early on that was kind of I think a lot of people lost interest in Twitter or didn't have the same verve for Twitter when they just started really dumping to, really making sure that that celebrities that joined Twitter did really, really well. And so, there was a point where I think, Leo, you were number 1 or 2 on Twitter when we were getting started.
And back in the old days.
I was number 99 at one point. I was 99, I think I might have taken a screen capture of that. Like, I'm on the top 100. And then, then they started basically really pandering to all the celebrities that came in, and everyone else just kind of dropped away, and you kind of felt like it was like this cool little club, and then they just hung out with the popular kids and dropped us all into the deep, and I think that is in some cases this kind of I personally think that Spotify did a lot of the work on this, is to really jam up there's a couple things that Spotify did. I think number one is to really press down on the really popular ones and throw lots of money at it, but also the specificity of the data didn't take into account some of the effectiveness that you can't measure in podcasts, that they want to know every minute that you listen to it and every little bit. And I get that's important data, but what happens is that you can't really have a CPM that properly represents that level of specificity. So one got really accurate and the other one's not. And I think that mismatch has been pretty damaging.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going to soldier on, thanks to our club members who help us keep the lights on. And as long as people want to hear about technology news, I hope we can find a little small place in your heart right next to Mom and Apple Pie. Apple has announced, revealed, and shown the 45 app and game finalists for the big App Store Awards. Actually, this happened right after the show last week, so I missed it. But we'll do it now because it's a good time filler. It's going to go right through the first hour of the show. Here are the finalists in the App of the Year. They haven't announced the winners yet, have they? Am I that far behind?
No, there's the Podcast of the Year announcement, but not the App of the Year.
What was okay? This I don't want to hear. What was the Podcast of the Year?
Oh,
hysterical!
It's
a Wondery podcast about
Dan Taberski
mysterious illness that spreads among a group of high school girls.
Yeah, see, that's but the problem is you can't do that for 20 years.
No,
can you?
That's a miniseries.
It's a miniseries. That's the problem, Well, good for Dan. Congratulations. It starts episode 1, Outbreak. Spasms. Oh, I don't know if I would read. Why do people want to listen to this? I wonder. Anyway, hysterical. Congratulations. The Podcast of the Year. Is that because it had the most downloads of every other show? No. It's just, it rose to number 1 in July 2024 and end of the year is number 9.
It's, it's a demonstrating quality and innovation podcast. And so again, it's Apple choosing. I just want to point out all these things that we talk about here. These are all decided by Apple. They are essentially editorial. Apple. Yeah, it's editorial. Well, it's marketing though, because it's Apple, so It is editorial in the sense. But like they have a podcast app and they have an app store, and so really what they're doing is, it is people doing content, but they're also are they choosing based on completely objective criteria? Are they choosing based on relationships with developers and things like that? I think that there's a lot that goes into this, so just keep your eyes open. It's always nice to see Apple recognize developers for their good work, but it is marketing for the App Store.
And the good news is it isn't necessarily a popularity contest. So sometimes they do lift up apps that are well made. Oftentimes the unifying factor is that this is a good example of Mac or iPhone or visionOS or iPadOS design. It's the sort of things that Apple wants to put more eyes on, and a lot of it is promotional. A lot of it is what's going to sell very, very well. I wasn't the first person to notice this, but it's like it is kind of interesting that like there are no AI apps on this list like ever, given that AI apps are some of the most interesting and transformative mobile apps that are on the App Store right now. I don't think there's anything weird about it, but it is to note that this is whatever metric they're going for. It's not about the number of downloads. It's not about necessarily stylistic impact. There is a lot of arguments, I'm guessing, between a lot of different factions, just like on a lot of Jason's podcasts. There are a lot of arguments about when we do our own picks of holiday movies involving bears. It's like, oh, I can't believe you chose The Revenant. It's not a Christmas movie, but it is a Christmas movie when you think about it.
As is Die Hard when you don't think about it. App of the Year finalists are, drum roll please, Kino. I think we've talked about that, haven't we, Alex? Kino's a movie making.
Yeah, it's a great. It's from the folks that brought you Halide.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So really, it splits the difference between the Apple Photos app and Blackmagic app, where it's not quite as complicated as Blackmagic, but not quite as simplistic as the Apple Photos one, or as simplified. I don't even know if it's simplistic would be the right word for the
it does something every I think proud American wants to do, which is grade log movies with LUTs.
That, in my world, that's super important.
I know. I bet they have an opinion on HLG versus HDR, but I don't.
Pandering to the office hours crowd.
They would know. PQ is better than HLG. So the HLG is easy, but we don't do
stop.
Easy. We do
Please.
better.
I beg of you.
But for people listening, for people listening, the LUT means that you can shoot in log, but you can watch it in what you want to, in the regular linear color space, so that you kind of understand what you're looking at while you're shooting. So that's why the LUT is important to a camera app.
Clear as mud, Mr. Lindsay. No, actually, I know what you're talking about, but I am speaking for the everyman now.
There you go.
Kino, and you do recommend it, right? Or would you rather use the Blackmagic app?
So I admit that I recommend it for anyone where the Blackmagic one feels too deep, and the Apple Photos makes you crazy because all the tools are kind of hidden in weird ways. So if you're kind of in that, so you open up the Blackmagic and go, whoa, that's too much. Or you go into the Photos app and you go, oh, that's not enough, or I can't find anything. Then Kino's perfect for you. It's got a clean interface. It gives you a lot of control. I'm still using.
Why would you use it over the built-in camera app?
The built-in one is, a lot of the features that are available that the camera has available to you are kind of either hidden or not available to you. The photo, Apple tries to make it easy for everyone. Right. They have a lot of great tools that they put in. You look at all this, like they shot the Weekend music video with it, and they shot this with it. When they're doing that, they're not using the Apple Photos app. Like they're using the phone. It's a shot with an iPhone. It doesn't say shot.
But they're using something that is much more capable, Kino or
Blackmagic opens up every bell and whistle that you could possibly have that the camera is capable of delivering, except maybe spatial. And so it opens up all of those options, but there's a lot of interface to it now. There's rows and rows and rows of settings and all these things, and it's easy for you to take bad footage. You can get the settings wrong. Kino is kind of, in my opinion, kind of halfway between.
Yeah.
So it's really
when you shoot in log, you're shooting to get all of the data, but it doesn't look right initially because
it looks very flat.
Color graded before it actually looks normal. And so what this does is allows you to shoot in log, gives you an instant grading so you can at least see something that looks sort of like what you want. And then at some point you could either use another tool or use it to,
because you might go out
like a LUT, which is lookup table that tells you what colors should really look like.
Yeah, and the lookup table just says, instead of this color, go to this color. Instead of this color, go to this color. It's just a curve. It's like if you think of Photoshop curves, just do that in 3D and you end up with a LUT. Yeah. And so
it comes with built-in color grades. Are they pretty good? I mean,
they're good. They're they are. Mine are very specific. Like we have discussions about, are you using the NBC LUT, HLG LUT, or the PQ LUT? Or are you using there's specific ones? And a lot of times as you get going, we don't really use kind of pre-built LUTs. Like a lot of times we would go out and shoot a test footage, and then we take it into Resolve.
You LUT it,
and we make it look the way we want it to look, or I actually get a colorist that I know to make it look the way he wants it to look, and then he sends me back a LUT.
So you can derive a LUT from an image that you've got it to look exactly as you want. You can then derive the LUT from that in Resolve. Okay.
You don't derive. It's
so you
not
can
like
say, here was the original. Here's B, the what I want it to look like. Please give me a lookup table that maps.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and typically that A is a log, shot, or raw, raw and log that's shot. And so the colorist will go in and set up the nodes inside of the color window inside of Resolve, and then you just literally select the image and right click on it and say export a 33-point LUT or a 65-point LUT.
And then for people who do still photography, it is somewhat analog to shooting in RAW. You have to process it afterwards to get anything that looks normal.
Exactly.
All right. So we've really gone deep into Kino. What is Runna? Does anybody here actually exercise? Just to
I actually do run, but I've never used Runna, so I can't really.
It has an opportunity. Strava, excuse me, which is a very popular runners app, has just disabled its API for most third-party tools, which is probably disappointing to people with Apple Watches and so forth. You like to get that stuff into Apple Health, for instance.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple running apps on here because there's also a Couch to 5K app in the best Apple Watch nominees. So they're definitely leaning into that. And I have used apps. I haven't used this app, but I've definitely used Couch to 5K apps and other run tracking apps on the Apple Watch to do that. And that's pretty great. But I can't speak to Runna other than that it's got tailored training plans, which is great because that's actually the thing. I ended up doing a lot of manual timing using an app called Intervals Pro because I couldn't find an app that would set my training plan properly. So I ended up inputting it on my phone manually and syncing it to my watch, and having that training plan right up for you it's better, right, to do it that way. It
says 5K, 10K, half, marathon, and ultra. So if you want to run one of these, you could get it would generate a training plan for you. So
and it's really nice because it knows when you're running. It's not just like telling you, okay, now run. It like will tell you what your paces are, but it'll also tell you, like some of them do interval training. I know that's how I did it with my 5K training is, it tells you to run for a while, then it tells you to take a break, and then it tells you to run again, and it gives you your stats. And that can be really helpful to have basically a coach who is speaking to you in your ears as you're running.
It's interesting Apple picked this because it only has 5 reviews. Of the 5 reviews, there mostly are 5-star, and then there's a whole bunch of 1-stars. There really seems to be no agreement.
You know how I feel about 1-star reviews. They're garbage. You throw them all away. You throw them away completely.
Throw them away. Okay. Yeah. If you throw the top and bottom away, you have no reviews. So there you go. Runna.
The mean is no opinion whatsoever. The median, rather.
The median. Runna is a finalist. We should mention these are not winners. And then the last one in the finalist for iPhone App of the Year is Tripsy, a travel planner.
I have used this one and it is good. The idea there is you're taking a trip and you can load it up with information. It'll give you, weather per day, which I really like. That is a winning feature. There aren't too many apps that do that. When I went to New Zealand last year, that was one of the things I really wanted to see. We were in different cities and different days, and I wanted an idea of what the weather was going to be like. Tripsy will do that. It's got a bunch of other things.
Oh, this is really nice.
Activity lists, itinerary planners, flight updates, syncs with your calendar. Like it is, if you want to be like have an app that works with you on like every day of your trip and what you're going to do and all of that. Tripsy does that. It's actually it's a very impressive app in that category.
I do most of this by hand in Notion. I just kind of create a Notion page.
Yeah, I do Apple Notes for a lot of this stuff too. But yeah,
the reason I use Notion is I could share it with my partner or other people so they kind of know what we're doing and so forth. Does Tripsy have that kind of capability? Can you?
I don't know if I didn't try that out. I tried this a while ago when they were still developing it.
It's very cool.
But it's a nice idea. Yeah. You can share your itinerary with family and friends.
Okay, because that's really key, right? You want to do all this planning, but you don't want to be the only one who knows what's going to happen. That's kind of ugly.
What happens when you get hit by a truck while on your vacation?
Exactly.
And nobody will know where to go next.
By the way, some of these Runna for sure, and Tripsy also run on the iPad. Tripsy runs on the Mac as well, so they're and the Apple Watch. So. There you go. There's your 3. You want to keep going? Are we good?
iPhone apps of the year. There, yeah.
No, those are the apps of the year. Now we have game finalists. I'm not going to go into as much detail. AFK Journey for building enchanting fantasy worlds with striking battles. The Wear Cleaner for delivering comical gameplay. And Zenless Zone Zero. You know, I'm starting to feel like the iPhone games are really pretty crappy. Am I wrong on that?
They're just of a sameness. I think
they're of a sameness. Yeah,
it's when this is one of the reasons why I really still enjoy my Playdate, because so many of the games are just one very, very strange lone game devever who didn't have to bounce any ideas off of anybody. They just thought this is a weirder. I just want to see this game happen. Yeah. You really have to dig to find like the stuff that really gets my attention on any kind of a mobile game.
Those are for iPhones. For iPad, the App of the Year finalists, Bluey, Let's Play. I know a lot of kids like Bluey.
Bluey.
Oh, you got to love Bluey for lovable characters and family-friendly fun.
We were talking the other day about the most viewed things on YouTube. Half of them are kids for kids.
Like, why, Alex? Because a kid will watch the same video 1,000 times, right?
Yeah, and I think
maybe not your kids. Your kids
to,
are smart.
Well, they still sometimes watch it pretty often, but they're usually trying to figure.
Baby Shark wouldn't exist if only adults were in the world, because you hear it once, you go, "Huh, that's cute," and that's it. You don't want to hear it again.
Yeah.
But a kid wants to hear it over and over and over, and so I think when you see all those kids with iPhones and iPads in the restaurant, they're playing Bluey. Moises. Interesting
Moises
name.
is incredible.
Yeah, really?
Incredible app. I mean, it's magical. Like it's a magical app.
This is for musicians.
So it's listed as iPad, but it's also a
it's iPhone as well.
It's iPhone as well. And so my daughter uses this heavily.
Interesting.
And so what she does with it is that, you know, she's got electronic drums. And so when she's trying to learn the electronic drums, learn a new drum riff for one of the bands, she's in a couple bands, she can take a song and she usually downloads it from YouTube or whatever, throws it into Moises, and it will separate all of the instruments. So it just pulls out all the instruments, and it gives you a levels control over each instrument.
Does it do a good job?
It does an incredible job. Like it does a job like I don't even know how that's possible. Like it is I don't understand it, to be honest.
Wow.
Like it is so good at pulling these apart and doing them so cleanly. And then what
it can actually separate the rhythm and the lead guitar.
Yeah, it gets better. You keep on.
I
seeing
can't
updates.
do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't do that when we bought it, but now it does it, and it keeps on adding more and more tracks that are available. And so the interesting thing is then what she does is she takes that and mixes it in with her drums so that she can turn just the drums up and play with the drums until she gets it,
interesting.
and then turn the drums down and be the drummer, and everything else is playing around her. And it's just transformation. Like it's just like sometimes it's one of those apps that I just go, I don't think I might have used it. I might have recommended it a year ago or whenever.
I think you did actually. Yeah.
But it's just like this is we're living in the future with this app.
This is remarkable. I should apologize to Micah and Rosemary because, of course, iOS Today has already done all this and talked about it. And if you like apps, that's the show to listen to. But I thought we should bring this up since we're so light on material.
I also thought it was kind of interesting that like so many of the picks were like, "Wow, Adobe Lightroom, what's that?" Like in the Mac apps, like both of them they're two productivity apps that we know well: OmniFocus and Lightroom. The third one is a pipeline feature for like 3D production. So
it's a 3D modeling package.
3D. Okay, thank you.
Shaper 3D. Yeah.
Yeah, it's relatively affordable.
Yeah, so these are big. So the first two are big name products. I mean, I guess OmniFocus isn't, except anybody who's been in Apple space for a while knows very well the Omni Group.
Yeah.
Because they do, and I think OmniFocus has probably been an App of the Year finalist for many times before.
Again, I mean that's that company, like they are like they were writing Mac apps before there was Mac app development, because they were writing these Mac apps as next step apps. Right. So you can't get like a more tighter pedigree or understanding of the philosophy of a Mac oriented app. And I was pleased to see Lightroom in there, because my God, the leaps that has made in the past 3 years. This year too, not just the desktop app, but the mobile app, where things that were like, I'm finding fewer and fewer reasons to wait until I get home to edit a photo, because there are so many advanced features on the mobile app for doing things like, but I only want this to affect someone, the face or this object inside the frame, and you will automatically detect objects for me, and I can, or even with people in the frame, you can just say, please identify all the people in this image, not by name, but by which shapes that represent people, and be able to say, okay, I want these edits to affect only person 3 and only their clothing. And it's like, it's why I keep saying that one of the reasons why I've never got into mobile gaming on my phone is that Lightroom Mobile is like my entertainment app. When I've got spare time, 10 minutes waiting for a bus, or like an hour waiting in an airplane or something like that, it's just so much fun to work with. So I'm surprised to see them name someone so important. By the way, particularly because, like, okay, so if they're buying their own competitor to Photoshop and to take it in-house and maybe release as a free app, you're choosing to give promotion to Adobe, which is great. No, which is great. It means that they're being honest, but it's like, oh boy, that's going to be fun next year.
Yeah.
We jumped ahead a little bit. Well, I'll make this quick. iPad App of the Year finalist. I just don't want to leave out Procreate Dreams because the people at Procreate saying, you mentioned Bluey and Moises. What about us? Procreate Dreams is, I guess, from the Procreate team, Savage Interactive.
It lets you build animations with what you're drawing, layers and so on and so forth. Yeah. It's really cool.
Nice.
A lot of these apps appear, you will not be surprised to believe, in various Apple keynotes over the course of time, which is, again, a sign that they are apps that are liked by people, especially, I think, in developer relations within Apple, and I think those are the people who drive and I think awards as well.
Probably who decides this, right?
I would think. I don't know, but that's my guess, and it's all of a kind, right? And I mean, you talked about iPhone apps sometimes feeling kind of samey. That again, I don't want to be too down on these awards because I really love that they're recognizing third-party apps, but they're recognizing them for reasons that make Apple happy, right? So one of the reasons that a lot of iPhone apps especially get recognized is because Apple likes to show off apps that have heavy graphics use because they want to use it to show off their GPUs when they release new iPhones, and so they're really into that. When is the market into that, or is it really that Apple's into that? And you see that if it's adopting Apple technologies, they really love it because that's what they're trying to promote. It's just something to keep in mind. Also, they're gonna prefer apps that are working with them as partners and that are in the App Store and all of those other things for Mac apps, for example. I did notice that in their press release, they linked to the mobile version of Lightroom in the Mac App of the Year category, which is, oops. But anyway, it's a great, not Mac app, but it was nominated for Mac App of the Year. So I'll give you an example. The Mac Game of the Year, one of the nominees is Stray, which is an amazing game, but like what they're really happy about is that that's a fairly high-profile game that came to the Mac this year.
Yeah, it's a AA title. You get to play a cat wandering around.
It's a great game, but yes, it is somewhere between cute indie game and AAA game. Well, so is Thank Goodness You're Here, which was published by Panic.
I actually loved Goodness You're Here.
That's a hilarious
it was so much
game.
Fun.
And I'm glad that they gave it promotion, right? Like
I played it on the Nintendo Switch, so I apologize. But
for any developer. For any developer getting the marketing muscle, even the weakest and flabbiest of marketing muscles of Apple behind your app in any way, it's a big deal. It's really important.
Sure. I was talking to a developer. This is years ago, so I don't know if it's the same now, but their app was in one of the commercials. It just flew by. It was like a logo. Yeah. It was like a logo, and someone actually used it for like a second. It was like a second or 2 seconds that you saw someone actually using their app. $250,000 a month.
Sure. They've done that with songs too, right?
It was just like suddenly they didn't have to work anymore. Like it just turned the whole switch on. They didn't know how long it was going to last when I was talking to them. They're like, eventually this is going to fade away, but like we're going to enjoy it while it lasts. And but that was it. That paid off their house, paid off everything else. It was 2 seconds on an Apple ad. So these recommendations, and I don't think I look at these and go that they ring wrong. Like it's like these are strong apps. Like for instance, I do think that in the Apple Vision Pro, they have JigSpace listed as the number one. I think it's the most impressive app other than playing movies. The most impressive non-movie app in the Apple Vision Pro is JigSpace.
Like you said, I think you're right. I think it comes from a point of view because, of course, it does. It comes from Apple's point of view. I think it's telling. Like when I saw JigSpace listed, I thought, well, of course, I literally got a Vision Pro demo from Apple at Apple with JigSpace, right? Like I know they like that app.
And when I show it to someone, I'm like, you got to go into JigSpace and take a look at this. Like you can see and I think this is to your point. It shows you where the Apple Vision Pro could go. Like it's actually not a very practical app because the development process is really expensive and painful and all kinds of other things. You don't see that many new things, but it's the best example. I think a lot of these Moises and JigSpace is an example of showing you what the technology could do. And kind of from a vision perspective.
Well, anyway, it's also useful for us as users to get some discovery in here, so that's nice. But it's much like the editorial function that highlights these things in the App Store itself. It's It's a little self-serving, but
it's but it's useful and it's not garbage app, so it's a good place to start.
Exactly.
I do wish that the App Store itself were a little bit more discoverable and a little bit more fun to just say I'm kind of dissatisfied with the image viewer apps that I have right now. I want to sort of browse and explore, or even I don't know. I haven't really looked at new apps of any kind because all my tools seem to be kind of okay. I just want to see what's new. I just want to see what's interesting. I think there even used to be like RSS feeds you could subscribe to. I mean, back when the influx of apps was somewhat manageable, the fire hose was at least something that you could keep on top of if you were so bizarre as to want to take a look at it. I feel like I do still feel like it's hard to know if I just want to see. I just want to really know a lot about the breadth of text editor tools that are available for the Mac. And it just doesn't seem like there's an easy way to do that unless you're just interested in editorially picked content, featured content, or the bestsellers.
All right. Geeking Tom has asked a question that I'm afraid I must ask. Alex, did you try to deep fry your turkey this year?
I did not. I sous vide it. How
did you injure your thumbs is the question.
Funny story.
Don't deep fry your turkey with your thumbs.
You're putting in the storm windows, weren't you?
Never manually drop your turkey into the fryer, I guess would be the lesson.
When you work in shipping and receiving when you're 18 years old, and there's a 2-chemical process to do packing materials, it's a 2-chemical that turns into foam.
Yeah.
All over the packages, it says to put gloves on. Don't let it touch your skin.
Oh.
At 18 years old, you don't pay attention to that. And so that when it gets cold, your skin cracks.
Oh, wow. So this is an injury from your youth.
It's a 30-year-old. I just, so every once in a while, I put these on to, it just lets them heal back up again.
Oh,
so
nice.
It happens
hard
all
for
winter.
life. That's hardcore, man.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just different.
You know,
you'll
my
see different
days
fingers.
in retail.
In the winter, you'll see different fingers covered with, and usually I remember to take them off before, I usually remember to take them off before the show. So
yeah, that sounds unpleasant.
Just follow the instructions. That's the only lesson. It hasn't hurt my life too much. Just follow the instructions. That's all.
Just follow the instructions.
Especially the ones with the big circle that has like the evil sign on it. You know, don't do this one thing. And I used to use it for everything. I used to send people like cassettes, and I'd be like, I'll put it in a foam package because I can do that custom. And it's what anyway. So there you go.
One more app. It's going to be Leo's app pick. It's actually not my app pick because they end up charging you money in 3 days, and you really shouldn't have to pay money for this. It's called Death Clock. I showed this on Sunday on TWIT. I just want to let you know that I will be dying March 17th, 2041, according to Death Clock. And just thought I'd warn you ahead of time. They do actually give you a little graphic that says save the date. But since I didn't want to pay $40 for this information.
Well, to be fair, they got to make sure they get that money out of you early.
Yeah,
okay?
that's true. They give you a 3-day trial, which is enough time to get your actual. It's so funny because it's a questionnaire. You go through the whole thing. And then it says, if you want to know when you're going to die, you should give us some money. It's like, why I oughta. Fortunately, they have a 3-day trial, which is free. You can find out when you're going to die. And then I don't know why you'd pay $40 a year for this. But I guess the idea is they tell you when you're going to die based on what your current habits are. And then how much longer you could live if you changed your habits. And since changing my habits, things like eating vegetables, would only add 6 years to my life, I'm just going to
don't bother
shine it on.
Now the operative question, of course, has to be, have you read the privacy policy?
Oh, my God. Yeah, because I told it a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
How long you will live, but how well.
That's one reason why, like, it's actually reassuring to see, oh, good, they're charging a lot of money for this. That's how they want to monetize this, hopefully.
Yikes. There is actually a website that does pretty much the same thing. It says I'm going to live to 90, so I don't know. I trust that one better. I think it's more accurate. Just thought I'd let you know that the last MacBreak Weekly will be March 17th, 2041.
Well, that's useful like because it's like
with Leo on March 15th.
Part of it is like maybe I'm not going to binge watch seasons 3 and 4 of Only Murders in the Building. I need to save something, so I'm going to have to fill like another 15 years I didn't think I'd have.
I think just Leo's going to have a lot of fun on St. Patty's Day. It's just like
that's right.
I
obviously drink myself to death, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be.
Yeah. Let's take a break. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Alex Lindsay, Andy Anako, Jason Snell, and me talking about the latest Apple news. There is not much, but we have some more. I don't know if we're going to have an occasion to play the Vision Pro theme, but let's see. Oh, yes.
A couple of candidates.
Andy, you found a story.
Actually, an interesting one that I think Alex is going to love.
All right. There you go. See? We work hard to keep you entertained. Our show today brought to you by Experts Exchange. You listen to our shows partly for entertainment, but I think also partly because you want information. You want to know more about technology. Experts Exchange is a website you can go to anytime and get answers from a network of trustworthy and talented tech professionals. They can give you industry insights and advice, and this is people who are actually using the products in your stack. If you're an IT professional, this will save you money. You don't have to pay for expensive enterprise-level tech support. You ask real people who are using the same products you are without any snark. There's no like, oh, well, I would never do it that way kind of thing, or that question's been asked before. No, these are great people. And there's no AI involved. And I think there's another reason to like Experts Exchange. It's the tech community for people tired of the AI sellout. Experts Exchange is ready to help carry the fight for the future of human intelligence. Access to professionals in over 400 different fields. I'm talking coding, Microsoft, AWS, Azure, DevOps, Cisco, and on and on and on. I mean, everything in the tech stack. And unlike other places, as I said, there's no snark. Duplicate questions are encouraged. And the reason is it's people like you who are on Experts Exchange, experts in a particular field. They're tech junkies. They love answering questions because they understand that one of the best payoffs for being an expert in a field is being able to pay it forward, to answer somebody's question and say, yeah, well, let me tell you how you solve that. I know that from doing the tech guy for so many years. It's a nice feeling when you can help somebody with their tech problems. And that's what Experts Exchange is there to do. One member said, I've never had ChatGPT stop and ask me a question before. That happens all the time on Experts Exchange. Experts Exchange is a human community. They're proudly committed to fostering a community where human collaboration is fundamental. In fact, many of the experts in there listen to some of our shows. Rodney Barnhart is a VMware V-expert. He listens to Security Now and TWIT. There's Edward Van Biljon, who is a Microsoft MVP, an ethical hacker. There's Cisco design professionals. There's even a C-suite and executive level IT directors and so forth who can help you with not just like the nitty-gritty technical questions, but even administrative questions or HR problems, things like that. Other platforms, and the list keeps growing. It started with Reddit. X does it. LinkedIn announced that they're doing this. They betray their contributors by selling the content you put there to train AI models, not Experts Exchange. Your privacy is not for sale there. They stand against the betrayal of contributors worldwide. They have never and will never sell your data or your content or your likeness. Not only that, they strictly prohibit AI companies. They block them from scraping content from the site, which, these AI companies are sneaky. They try to do this all the time. They block them every time. And moderators say, no LLM content in the threads. We want human answers. I think that's one of the reasons, but there are many to love Experts Exchange. Experts deserve a place where they can confidently share their knowledge without, worrying that some company is going to steal it to increase their value, right? And humanity deserves a safe haven from AI, a place where humans can gather and have a community and help each other. That's Experts Exchange. Now, it isn't free, but they are offering a 3-month free trial, and you don't need to give them a credit card. So I think this is the time to check it out and see if this is what you need. I think you'll love it. In fact, I should warn you, it's addictive. You want to get in there, ask questions, but also answer questions. Experts Exchange, 90 days free, no credit card required. Go to e-e.com/twit. Nice address, right? e-e.com/twit to learn more. Thank you, Experts Exchange, for supporting the show. And of course, you support us when you go to that special address. That way they know you saw it here. e-e.com/twit. All right, let's see here. What else is going on? I thought we were talking about privacy. And I think it's really good news. It's not specifically Mac news, but it's very good news. The FTC now is looking into banning or restricting what data brokers can sell of your information, including your social security number. And if they do sell that information, can you believe they're actually allowed to do that? They will be viewed as a credit reporting agency, not as a privacy invading data broker, which means they have even more regulation. This is a very small step. It is just a first step, and it isn't even a step yet. It's just proposal. But I've said for a long time, I'm not going to really credit Congress with doing anything for our privacy by banning TikTok unless they go a step further and ban data brokers.
100%.
I mean, who cares about TikTok if China and anybody else can buy the same information completely legally online? In fact, better information because the data brokers collects it from all the apps. But Congress has yet to do anything. Maybe the FTC will. We'll see. Oh, actually, it's not the FTC. It's the CFPB, which means they're trying to do this before January 20th because it will that agency will probably disappear.
Yeah. And it's especially important because a lot of law enforcement agencies are using these resources to get around like being able to having to get warrants for certain information, because if they can just buy information instead of having to go through a court and convince a judge, that's been happening a lot, and we need to put brakes on it. Basically, a lot of it is that it will give you, if this rule goes into effect, it means that they would have to go ask you for explicit permission before they sell on your social security number. Why is that already not illegal?
That was the stunning thing in this story.
Yeah,
wait a minute. They're allowed to sell your social? That's legal?
If they got it, they can.
And they're not even banning it, by the way. They're just saying, well, that's going to put you under more regulation. And I guess we should probably give you the bad news, which is January 20th. It's all over.
Well, maybe. I mean, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has been all over the news, even the Apple news, for the past few months. They've been doing such great work. There was a story just a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if we talked about it or not, where they decided first they were the agency that said that, okay, the Apple Card and the banking organization that runs it, you basically screwed up a whole bunch of things you're supposed
Goldman
to do
Sachs.
to customers. Goldman Sachs. You haven't been responding to user complaints in a timely fashion. You haven't been doing chargebacks fast enough. All this sort of stuff, and so they got hit by fines and stuff like that. And then a couple of weeks ago, they went ahead and said, "Okay, guess what? We've decided that there are so many new, like Google has their own financial movement system. Apple has their own financial movement system for consumers. We've now decided that you now have to be regulated. You now have to follow the same rules that a credit card company or a bank does in those circumstances. So you can't just simply decide that these don't apply to us. We're just two hippies in a garage." Again, they've been doing such wonderful, wonderful work. And it's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. There are four letters that a lot. I mean, I wasn't really terribly aware of it until like 8 or 9 months ago, until the first time there was a news item that it referred to. I started hitting its website, and then I bookmarked the hell out of that website because the actions that they take are always meaningful and not vague in their intent or their purpose. They move swiftly and accurately. They're a great organization. I hope they stick around.
It's Elizabeth Warren created, and I have a feeling it will be one of the first things that disappears.
Well, as Elon says, there's a lot of waste and
there's a lot of waste. Yeah,
and I don't see the need of that's.
He actually wants to literally use the word delete the CFPB.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
We should really just delete it.
Yeah.
I think of all the money we'll save. Probably. All right. I don't want to get into politics.
Again.
We'll stop. Here's a happy-go-lucky story. Gronk made some money on his Apple stock. William Gallagher writing at the Apple Insider. So Gronk, who is an NFL player, Rob Gronkowski.
We like to think of him as the
retired
NFL thinker.
Yeah, I bet you he isn't dumb, but he sure plays dumb on TV. Let's put it that way.
Can I say that as a New Englander who's been like, when he was playing, like every single week there'd be a story. He was like our Yogi Berra, or he was like those really great old-timey football players from the 60s when they're giving interviews in the 70s and 80s where, they're just like,
he's a Dick Butkus for our times, ladies and gentlemen.
He's talented. He knows what he's about.
Exactly.
He's a good storyteller, and for now, we haven't heard any bad stories about him, so we can still think of him as a lovable
He's now
we're happy for him.
NFL play-by-play guy, and he also is, of course, very rich from his years at the Patriots.
Also, Gronkowski. How can we?
What a great name!
It would be a sin if he didn't turn out to be a football player, because Gronk is too good a nickname to waste on a golfer.
According to Fortune magazine, Gronk in 2014 was building a house, and the guy building it would not stop talking about Apple stock. Every time I saw him when we were building the house, he kept saying, "Get Apple, get Apple." So after the 50th time I got it, And let me tell you, it's the best investment I ever had in my life. Gronk, you should have bought. He says, by the way, I never been involved in stocks. I really don't know how stocks work. So I called up my financial advisor, put $69,000 in Apple, says Gronk.
Nice.
Yeah, that was when Apple was just about to take off, right? 2014.
It was depressed kind of artificially. And he happened to pick a moment when like everyone was on a sell mode. And yeah, he did very well. He says, go ahead.
To this day, I have over $600,000 in Apple stock, all because of that investment I made in 2014, having no idea with what I was doing, but just listening to the guy who built my house.
Yeah. It was a terrific story. He says he like, because he's got money, he can say, he just called his broker or whatever, said, yeah, give me $60,000 in that Apple thing. Forgot all about it until like another meeting. Oh, by the way, your Apple stock has quadrupled in the past 2 years.
Isn't that a funny story? That's just a funny story. A little amuse-bouche to move on from what would otherwise be kind of unpleasant news. Vision. Let's do our Vision Pro segment. John Ashley, are you ready to press the button? You know what?
What do you know? It's time to talk
I'm just going to give him time. I was going to give you time. I was going to take a break and then let you find it and get the button ready.
I'm ready to go.
Right on top of it, John Ashley.
It's like I do this for a living, Leo.
Do you? Do we pay you? You're not a volunteer?
Wait, hold on. I need to check my account real quick.
We should talk because, well, anyway, as you know, podcasting is not doing very well. No, we love John Ashley. visionOS 2.2, according to 9 to 5 Mac, is bringing some upgrades, 3 upgrades that make the Vision Pro actually a huge boost, Now, we've talked about Mac virtual display.
They overstated a little bit.
Are they overstating it?
I think
so. It's 3, and it's not really 3, is basically it, because it's really 1, which is the stuff we talked about,
modes.
The Mac display modes, and the fact that the basic mode is also clearer than it was before. And then what's their third item?
Routing audio to the right place.
It fixes a bug involving sound.
Yeah.
Okay, well, wow. You convinced me.
Wow, let's all buy a Vision Pro, kids. They say it truly makes the Vision Pro a next-gen computer.
Not the strongest. I mean, that headline cannot be backed up by the story.
It's great that Apple's adding value to the product. I mean, I don't think that when we were hopeful last year before the debut, we thought that like by this time there would be a big update that everybody loves and appreciates and agrees is a great thing for the system. And it's like, the feature that allows you to use it as a display for the computer you do actual work on. It's a bigger display and it's better detail.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's true. But if you go back to when this product was announced and people were talking about features of the Vision Pro, I'd say even back then, people said that Mac display thing might be the killer app. Like, I think that actually very early on, people were like, whoa, that might be really interesting to use this. And I think it is. Of course, we're still talking about it, this extended version of it being in beta. So, we're coming up on 18 months since they first announced this product, and that killer feature still hasn't shipped. But maybe now is the time. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, but what I'm getting at is that like if Apple had decided that we like virtual reality, we think VR goggles and VR hardware from Meta and whatever are interesting products. We think there's only one use case, really great use case for it, and that is as a floating display that goes wherever you go. And they decided that all we're going to do is do a VR headset that acts as an external display for your iPad or your Mac. How much less money would it have cost?
I don't know.
When you consider how much a really good display, like people will spend $500 to $1,000 on a decent like gaming display, and so if you use that as a benchmark and said, Apple, what could you have done if you just we'll put some other stuff in it too, but primarily you're selling this as an extral display, and the budget, the retail budget is $1,000 or $1,200.
But I think the killer app.
Sense.
Sorry,
Apple's cheapest display doesn't cost $1,000.
So it's a bargain.
Well, so the problem is that to deliver, to me, there's a few killer apps that are in there. I think that I think that the movie, if I'm not with my family, I watch movies on the Apple Vision Pro. Like it is the best screen I've ever owned. like as far as watching a film that's there. I mean, it just really is. It's sharper. It sounds better. All those things. And I think that the immersive, even though I think Apple's making a lot of missteps with the stuff that they're publishing, I think that eventually there's a lot of people that someone sees something and you see a couple minutes of it and there's some motion of that. You're like, oh, this is going to be great when people actually have cameras and do it more. I do think that the screen I poo-pooed because I have so many screens at home, but now that I'm traveling, when I'm in a plane, it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty amazing experience to have that big screen in front of me and be able to actually get stuff done in coach, So I think that is there. My newest thing right now has been, I'm getting to the age where you have to start paying attention to blood pressure. And so I take my blood pressure pretty often now. And I tested the meditation app. I was like, I turn everything into a research project. 6 minutes with the meditation app and my systolic and diastolic dropped over 10 points. I suddenly got into like, I have to admit, I turned it on. I was like, that's cute. But once you get into 5 or 10 minutes of it, it's actually a pretty amazing experience, to kind of like it seems like a silly thing from the surface that I actually am starting to really enjoy. So I think that's, those types of things I think are pretty interesting. I think Jigspace we talked about it earlier. It's a great app. Apple just needs to make it accessible. Like they need to either buy the company and do something with it, or Sherlock them and do something and make Keynote able to do those things. But something has to happen where you're able to build that kind of experience less expensively and more easily or Jigspace figures it out, like how to build a business model that actually makes sense. But there is you just see this huge gold mine of how to put things together, how to build things, how to build IKEA furniture where you use all the screws, like how to do all those things are things that I think that would be really, that's the thing that I look at. I
need to buy a $3,500 headset so I can figure out how to put together a $200 side table. That's a good use of my money.
With half the swear words, those
swear words can't add up. I have to say.
Yeah. So it's all the stress, but I think that there are many complex things that I'm pretty excited about. Again, I think that I'm personally wish that Apple hadn't cut as many corners as they did. I would have paid $6,000 if they had done 120 frames a second. Because you need to be able to develop for that far end, and you can't develop for that far end if it doesn't exist. And it's easier to go back and say, okay, now we're going to do a cheaper one that does all the things. But I think that the problem is delivering those movies to the screen at the frame rate and the resolution that they're doing it required probably almost all the processing power that you're looking at there. So there's not that much. If you're able to see through it and be able to see the environment around you and then put up a screen, you're probably looking at $3,000 or $4,000. It's not that I don't think it would have saved a lot to say, I just want to play, a 4K image, in there are companies that do 1080 per eye, but they're cheap and weird and it's not the same, so.
I have to say, though, all the ads Meta's putting out this holiday season to get the Meta Quest are probably good for the Vision Pro. They're good for the category anyway. They show people using it to do all the things that you would expect, a nerd helmet would do. And I think that's probably good for
the Quest
Apple.
Is great. I mean, Supernatural is the best app on the Quest, in my opinion.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
But it's,
I like the boxing games. I like the music games and so forth. But So here's an interesting idea, and I hope it comes true. The president of Real Madrid, the big soccer team in Spain, is upgrading their stadium, and they apparently are thinking of making it possible to attend a game in the Vision Pro. This is reported by Marca. He says, everybody wants to come to Santiago Bernabeu, and that's why we're negotiating with Apple to be able to wear glasses and watch the match as if you were at the stadium. It would be the infinite Santiago. I think that's kind of interesting. I
actually know a lot about this kind of coverage.
Yeah, because in the 9 to 5 Mac story, they say they don't go into what it would take to do that. What would it take to do that?
Also, just parenthetically to add a little context, it's not as though you'd be really suspicious of this if this was a VR company that has said, "Oh, we're in negotiations with Apple to create technology for this." Oftentimes, it's self-promotional. Right. This was just something that, in the context of we're building this new stadium. Yeah, we know we've got addressing an actual complaint. Well, one of the ways we're trying to address this is that we're actually talking to Apple about allowing people to visit the stadium and VR. So interesting, early, but interesting.
Soccer games are really hard to do in VR. I've done a lot of them
because they use the whole big wide stadium, right?
The pitch is too big, and so what happens is that the resolution breaks down, or you're in the wrong place most of the time. So where we put cameras in the past or midfield, we put cameras at the goal. The goal is obviously really cool, and the reason the goal is cool is because you have something in the foreground that tells you you're in 3D. You see a lot of dimension. The problem is no one's there most of the time. Then you put it in the middle of the pitch, and then you everyone's too far away. It's just 2D, and then it's low resolution. And then you put it in the crowd, and it doesn't make any sense. It's really low resolution. And even though these are really high resolution cameras and screens and everything else, it's really hard to find a place in a soccer. I mean, I kind of gave up on it. Like, I just have to say that I feel like this is like we thought of this 8 years ago, and then we did a bunch of it, and then we were like, this is things that work exceptionally well in VR are close quarter. So MMA, boxing, that type of thing. Like if they had done an immersive record of the boxing matches that Netflix did, that would be something that people would want to watch, because when it's close up, remember that the active area that really makes sense in VR is 5 to 20 feet. Like that's the world, is 5 to 20 feet. And anything longer than 20 feet away is, it's okay. And you'll see that if you look at all the examples that they show, if anyone has a headset, you put them on, the stuff that's 5 to 20 feet away looks amazing. Everything else is just kind of like, okay, it's fine. And what Apple proved is if you get really close, it's really uncomfortable. I think that.
So is it foolish to say let's do this? Make a virtual stadium?
Knock themselves. Maybe they'll figure out something that we didn't figure out 8 years ago. But all of many people.
Because what it sounds like is he's not trying to do that was cool, I'm at the goal line or I'm on the ball or whatever. He wants to make it so you're there at the stadium. I don't know if that's doable. Right?
I don't know if it. Again, it's just you got to. Maybe I'm always looking forward to being proven wrong on a production pipeline. Like I would not move the cameras the way Apple moved in Submerged. There's a couple shots there that I was like, I would have never done that, and it totally worked. And then there's a bunch of stuff they did in the weekend that I would never do, and I would still never do. I'm only more sure of it now. So I think that, but soccer, just I can say a lot of people have dulled their swords whacking on the soccer wall, with VR. Like this is like, it's like
whacking on the VR wall. Show title.
It's not the right venue for this at the current resolution and technology that we have right now. It's just not the right place for this. And there's so many places that are.
Is there a sport that would be better?
We're talking
shot put,
boxing.
There you go.
Boxing, MMA, field. Wrestling, anything that's close quarter, is anything that's going to all happen mostly 20 feet away, where most of the action is going to be 20 feet from the camera. It's going to be, it looks great. And so those things are the, it's, and things that go wide, there's this temptation. You saw this with the, concert for one, is there's this temptation to try to fill the whole space, but you don't actually want the person to look to the side. You want them to feel the side, and then you want them to look at what's in front of them. And because every time they see the black, it takes them out of the experience. And so I think that, but again, I think that there are sports that really lend themselves to it, and concerts and all kinds of other things. It's just that people often go after the ones that are harder. Yeah.
But I think that, like, we talked last week about that really cool looking F1 app, VR app for the Vision Pro that was pulled while they discussed rights to with F1 for the footage of it. And I don't necessarily, when a couple of years ago, I might have thought that, oh, well, great, I can actually be in the cockpit and I can feel like I'm actually there. When actually, that's such a great example of to be able to watch baseball or basketball or even soccer or football or anything, where in front of me is the entire field, like a game version, a video game version of the field, that I've got a God's eye view on things, whether it's real or whether it's something that's being simulated. Remember that, I think, was it next week that the Simpsons, they're doing a special Simpsons simulcast of an NFL game where in real time they're replacing all of the players with Simpsons characters.
Is that what they're going to do? I saw the ad for that. They're going to actually, it'll be the game as Simpson characters playing it?
Yeah, and they did that with Toy Story characters last season, I think.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it's what happens is you can build the characters out, and it depends on how much detail that they want to do it, but you're basically building every player, and then you're using a variety of algorithms. I mean, people call them AI, of course, because that's cool, but they're just using a bunch of things that are going to track that information. It's going to extrapolate it. It gets a little complicated when they get into a bundle. So, but when they're in a pile, it's hard. But when they're running, it's able to do a pretty good job of figuring out where they're moving. It's not actually, and then what it does is you create a skeleton that is just what we call the rigid bodies. The rigid bodies in someone's body are things that normally won't change in relationship to each other unless something horrible happens. And so usually
like playing football.
Yeah, well, there's parts of it. So rigid bodies are your forearm, your upper arm, your chest cavity, your hips, those types of things. You track those and you turn those into a skeleton, and you take that skeleton, you apply it to the CG, and you can do that these days in real time. That's not and then you can track their position. And I mean, there's a lot. People are trying to get to a point where you could actually stand on the field and have VR versions of the football players, and you could watch from where the referee is, or you could watch from where, and that stuff's close.
Yeah. What I'm getting at is I don't necessarily want to place myself on the field. I want this basic setup of in front of me on a table, whether real or virtual, I have the entire field in front of me. So let's get into baseball, where when there's a hit into left field, I want to follow where the ball's going, like where the play is going, I can go there. But I can also select virtual displays around it that are live video feeds, because there are times when right in front of me would be the big screen, which would be like the conventional TV coverage of it, where the director is calling all the shots. But like when I'm at a real ball game, I love looking at the interactions between the catcher and the home plate umpire. I would want like a fixed position on that, and I want a fixed position on the pitcher, and I want a fixed position on this, so that after the thing's been hit into the midfield, I want to see how the catcher is setting up the play. I want to see if he's doing those wonderful Jedi mind tricks that catchers sometimes try to play against the umpire, like making them think that the strike zone is bigger than it is, or intentionally shielding their view of something that they don't want them to see at the plate, so that they will get a better chance of getting a good call. The ability to like interpret this as exactly how I specifically want to be able to see it, given that there's so many video feeds happening at the same time, during the airing of the shooting of a live game, the ability to at least give me a menu of viewpoints to choose from, again, not in an immersive 3D way, but basically be able to see, I really want to see what's happening at the plate. Like, is he signaling for cutoff, or is he actually preparing for a play at the plate? That sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I think that creative stuff like that is a little bit lateral, but I think it's a really, really interesting. It would make me a lot more interested, not in a $3,000 headset, but maybe $1,000 headset.
One of Apple's Vision Pro app nominees was the NBA app, and that's an example where it's not quite the annotated single game, but they've got the multi-view where you can place different games in a Ozymandias and Watchmen kind of view. If you want, I can see all the NBA at once. But it speaks, and the MLB app, they've been experimenting with this too, where you're sort of watching the game on the Jumbotron, but there's also like a 3D field, because they've got sensors on every player, or they got cameras that can measure all the spaces that every player is moving through at any given time and where the ball is. And I do wonder, if one, I think maybe there are multiple aspects of this, but like Alex said, some sports might actually be improved by being annotated a little bit more than being immersive, and that's okay. As somebody who has been to a lot of baseball and football games live, the live stadium experience can be kind of annotated too by the scoreboards and stuff like that. So I do wonder, like I would be really interested in getting a front row seat for at a front row seat courtside at an NBA game. I mean, that would be really interesting. It would be a very different experience. And
you could do that, right, Alex? But everything's within 20 feet if you're in courtside.
What we've done is we've put them right in the what do you call it? Middle
scorer's table,
mid court, right at the scorer's table. Right, set it right up in front of where the scorer's table is, but still out of bounds, obviously. And then and then you look at it, and it is the problem we had when we did it, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, was that our frame rate wasn't high enough. So this gets into where
they're moving pretty quick. Those guys,
really,
the ball, yeah.
So at 30 frames a second, which is where we were at when we were doing 4K per eye stereo, 180, so you could turn all the way to the side, or not 180, 360, you could go all the way around. But the problem we had was
because I want to see Jack Nicholson in the back there. Yeah,
exactly. And so at 60, we felt at 60 frames a second to be better, but really where we wanted to get to is 120 because that action does make a difference. But you suddenly realize why people pay $2,000 a seat when you get to
courtside's amazing.
It's just an amazing experience, and people are coming by, and again, there's enough action. That's a good example of where it does work. And there's other things you can do, like we were talking about golf is a one that doesn't work, right? In general, golf is not a great experience for this. But what we did is we were able to put 360 cameras at different greens. So that's a place that it does make a difference. And then
maybe put it on the pin. Then you could see the ball coming at you.
We just put it to the side. They're still playing a game. I mean, it's just like there's scores.
The pin's not, I guess.
Anyway, so these are big cameras. I mean, these are a camera that's, it's like a basketball size camera. And so
make the pin easier to find.
But what was interesting is that if you took the content and just put the 16:9, the content you see on TV, but without all of the data on it. So no lower thirds, none of that. You just put a big screen, you can make it as big as you want. And then you have all the data on one side and your social stuff on the other side. It's a great experience. You're sitting in there and you're kind of in it. Like you're seeing Twitter feeds, you're seeing all the data that you want when you want it. You're seeing a big screen. And then every once in a while, you just transition to the 360 experience, when there's something happening there, and then you go back to it.
The problem is, can you do that live?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do that live.
Because that's the problem.
That's all
if you have to do it in post, the game's over. Everybody knows the score. Nobody really cares very much.
No, this is. There's a latency of 20 seconds, but same as
well, that's live enough. Yeah. It strikes me the best thing would be chess. The World Chess Championship's going on right now. Nobody watches just the game. You always watch the commentary, and it's right there. It's close. You could look left, look right, look left again.
How did we not think of that?
Doesn't move very fast, so the frame rate's not important.
Next year we're going to do that. I think that has to be done.
Have you tried the new Google AI experiment where it will play chess? It's a chess game, but you give it an AI prompt and it will develop a set of chess pieces. And it's funny. It's exactly what Google is kind of meant to do, which is like, oh wow, that's kind of cool, that's kind of fun. And then you think about it one level later and you think, my God, the Earth resources that are being consumed to make two sets of chess pieces that look like Brussels sprouts.
It's just, and by the way, whoever designed it doesn't really understand much about chess, because the way the board is angled when you're playing makes it actually very unpleasant. Yeah. And anyway, who wants to play chess with cheese pieces? Really? Right?
If they were edible and there are no if you could get rid of like the
that's
rule
true.
where
If you
the pawn
could eat
advances,
the pawn after you take it, I think that's not a bad idea.
That increases the stakes.
Yeah. So let's see. We're going to play cheese versus wine, which I think that's a natural.
I do like the fact that like you choose a prompt for one, and then it will choose for you like an opposing thing to that concept. So that I think I did plumbing, and it chose like architecture or like electronics as the plumbing set was actually very good.
It seems like I realize there could be a how have we not had candy chess that you just if you take the person's candy, you eat it.
There are chess sets that are little vodka, like little alcohol bottles.
Shot chess.
I was going to say,
actually, that's a good way to do it, because if you have to drink the person's piece after you take it,
Hawkeye
changes around over time.
played a version of checkers like that on MASH once. Shot glass checkers.
Shot glass checkers, baby. Whoever designed this doesn't play chess because this is the worst possible angle to look at a chess game. It just really is. I can't even figure out. I had
my problem was that like they weren't. They should have to do the like if there's a light colored set, there has to be a dark colored set, and whatever happens to be light colored set has to go first. And that's when I played it on the phone, at least I got like the typical you're sitting at a table across from another person view. So maybe that's just the desktop view.
Right. Yeah, I can't. This is impossible. This is just awful. I can't even. That's why I'm losing to wine. I'm playing cheese right now.
I want Don Knotts characters versus.
What the hell's going on? You can't even tell. It's so weird. Yeah. All right. Let's. That was, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not. You see, this is why I want Vision Pro Chess, the Vision Pro segment.
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
Yeah. You're watching MacBreak Weekly for a Tuesday. We do the show every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. And we do now, thanks to the club. Thank you, club members. Stream on 8 platforms. I think Discord, I don't know if we're streaming on Discord. We're having some audio difficulty, but that would be the one for the club members. But there's not just Discord. I got to use my fingers carefully here. I got to count down properly. Let's do this. No, let's do this one. We do YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. All available during the live stream. Now, after the stream, we then obviously edit it up and make the show available as a download because it is a podcast. If you're a club member, you'll download a version that doesn't have any ads in it, including this plug for the club. Isn't that nice? If you're not yet a club member, I invite you to join. $7 a month. Right now, we are at about 1.5% of the total audience is a club member, which sounds low, but it's actually enough to pay half our payroll, half of John Ashley's salary. So that's nice. We'd like to make it 100%. That would be my goal. None of that money goes to me. It goes to all of the people who make TWIT possible, including our contributors, our staff, keeps the lights on, all of that stuff. And you get some benefits. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of the show, access to the Club TWIT Discord, which is a great hang. Really great people. I was solving the advent of code problems last night in the club with some of our club members who are very accomplished programmers. They were helping me out. It was kind of fun. We've been streaming that every night. Just one of the many things we do. There's a Micah's Crafting Corner. Stacy's Book Club is coming up. Coffee time with the Coffee Geeks. And we will do on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, some of our top programmers who are club members and listeners, including Darren Oakey and Paul Holder and SciPhase will join me for a recap of the first week of the Advent of Code Coding Challenge, which will be a lot of fun. That's this Thursday in the club. We do these things because it makes it fun. It's a great community. And because we want to incent you to join. So please help us out. Be part of the 1%. If I could get to 5%, we would be, we could expand, we could add shows. At this point, with advertising dwindling, and it really, next year is very bleak, we might be going the other direction without your help. So please, twit.tv/clubtwit. Enough said. I don't want to belabor the point. Back we go to MacBreak Weekly. Apple has decided to push HomeKit support for robot vacuums to next year.
Why don't they just tell the robot vacuum to go home?
Go home, robot. You're drunk. I don't even know why this is a story, but I could tell you that's what's come to.
I know we're all grateful when Apple actually talks in detail about their plan for future software releases. This sort of story is why they don't want to do that, is because then everybody says, oh, but Apple, you said by the end of the year you'd have some robot support in HomeKit, and now it's going to come early next year. So you're a liar and your pants are on fire. And I was like, I don't know if anybody really cares. It's a little late. A few of the features they said would be the end of the year going to get pushed to the next OS version sometime early next year. So I have a robot vacuum. I'd love for it to, all my little things that are not in HomeKit, I would love to be able to get in HomeKit one way or another. So I'll wait. I've been waiting. I mean, that's the truth. Anybody who's got a robot vacuum already can't use it in HomeKit, or has figured out a way to use it in HomeKit. Either way, they're not waiting around for Apple.
HomeKit? You wouldn't give it instructions.
It's a native. I mean, at the very least, you would be able to tell it to go, and possibly to tell it to run a particular routine, or tell it to go home. Stuff like that using Siri. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I did when I used to have a robot? I had a Roomba, and it would wake up in the middle of the night. It plays a little song when it wakes up. Strike one. Starts going.
I have a Roomba. I know it.
And then every night it would get stuck under a piece of furniture and go ka-tunk, ka-tunk,
yep,
ka-tunk. And so you know how I said go home? I got up in the middle of the night, picked it up by its little robot handle, and put it back on the station. After the third time of that, I put it back at a special station under Lisa's tire in the garage. Unfortunately, she noticed it before running it over. But we don't have that Roomba anymore. Yeah. What one do you use, Jason?
It's a Roomba, I forget, i4 or something like that with a collector.
You like it?
It's the kind that doesn't walk randomly, but actually has a camera and knows where all the rooms are and maps itself and all of that. I do like it. The big problem with it, because I do not like to sweep or mop or anything like that. You
still have to, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot less. And I have 3 pets, so there's a lot of hair.
Yeah.
And having it run every day is fine. The problem is I do work at home. These products are best for people who aren't at home when they run.
So you can say, go to work when I'm at work.
Every day at 2 p.m., the thing goes off and it's noisy in the house and I have to hide. Well, it's a vacuum cleaner. I mean, it's little and all, but it's a vacuum cleaner. A vacuum cleaner is never going to be silent. But yes, I do find it valuable. It really picks up a lot of stuff just running, and then when we're out of the house, I have it set to run when we leave the house as well. And that is pretty great too. So yeah, I mean, it's a supplement, but with 3 animals in this house plus 2 people, it definitely does its job. I like it. I'm glad I have it.
You like the iRobot? There are many competitors now. It's become a very. Did Amazon end up buying iRobot? They tried and they didn't. I think is what happened because the hue and cry was.
Yeah, that might be. So there are some other competitors out there, but I have a Roomba and I like it.
I didn't know this, but Apple's headquarters in the UK are in London's Battersea Power Station.
I didn't know that either.
It's beautiful. My friend Mike Hurley has been there multiple times, and he says that it's more impressive than Apple Park to him. What they've done.
It definitely has that
it is.
Industrial feel with the 2 smokestacks.
Yeah.
Like Apple really churning out. We're coal powered now. Mm-hmm. So apparently from today until New Year's Eve, according to Apple, you can watch Wallace and Gromit decorate giant Christmas trees in a stop-motion installation shot on iPhone 16 Pro Max and projected on the Battersea Power Station smoke stacks, which are no longer in use, of course.
What a great idea. That's
cool looking.
Because it is like one of the classic things you kind of want to see, like when you visit London, particularly if you're taking a boat tour. And to have both those smokestacks creatively turned into like Wallace is on one side, Gromit is on the other. The stack is like really, really thin tree with hijinks and merriments aplenty. What goodwill they're creating for everybody by doing something that cool. And also, by the way, of course, they would have, of course, the Aardman Animation was happy to use the iPhone 16 Pro because they were planning on using them anyway for the stop motion project.
Of course we were.
But nonetheless, it is impressive that it is good enough for and sturdy enough for that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, especially because it's getting blown up to a giant size, right?
Well, I mean, they're and projected on rough. So that's projected on bricks. But nonetheless, what impressed me was that you sometimes see these behind the scenes. Oh, you believe this behind the scenes movie?
They made a video on an iPhone,
and you see the behind the scenes, and it's in this RoboCop huge refrigerator size enclosure with 1 million cables running in and out of it. This is we just sort of put it in an aluminum thing and aimed it at the. We have a remote activation on it.
That's 6,000 frames of stop motion It looks like some of it was done by hand. I don't know. That can't possibly.
I think a lot of it was done by hand.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's all done by hand.
No, the motion was, but the camera's not. I mean, he was hand holding a camera.
I think that handheld was like figuring out framing. I don't think that they did any of that by hand. I don't think you do stop motion with handheld shots is really hard.
No, you really want to lock it down.
Yeah. So they had like that's the kind of the larger small rig cage that they used there, and it looks like the only thing they added to it was power. And then there is a couple shots in the behind the scenes where they show a motion control system that the camera was put on to do pans. Like that's how you kind of do. In some cases, you're using motion control to change the camera position over time, so that someone's animated. If you want to see a pan, it's complicated because you're moving the clay armature a little bit
at the same time as you're moving the camera.
The camera has to. So what they do is a lot of those are built around a motion control head that just moves what you've decided is one frame, for that movement while you're doing the other parts that are in front of it. I think this is a great integration. I think they could take it a lot further. That they could be doing. Aardman has an app, the Aardman animation app, stop motion app that, of course, they're promoting in some of the behind the scenes as well. I think it's the second behind the scenes video is them actually showing this is how you could do it yourself. You could build a little clay thing that would hold your phone. That's a horrible idea, but we're going to show you how to do it that way anyway. I was like, put your camera in clay. I was like, not okay, not okay. So I didn't appreciate. I was like, just buy a tripod. It's $6. So they're trying to.
They actually show you putting your iPhone in clay. Can show this, right? Am I going to get taken down? Secure it with tape, clay, blocks, or board. I guess the real point is for kids, right?
I understand
that you could. Don't use Sugru though; you'll never get your phone out, right?
Yeah, I was like, I was like, if I came out and my kids had wrapped their phone with clay, I would not be happy. So I paid a lot of money for that camera for that phone. So
Aardman is the tool they're using.
They're using Aardman animation. It's a little tool that's just designed to make it really easy to do. There's lots of them. I mean, Boinks software makes one. There's a bunch of other ones. There's lots of stop motion. Boinks is the one that I use probably the most. But I
also like at the end of both of these how-to behind the scenes videos, the Apple logo. Let me show you that. You can show this. They're not going to take me down for showing the Apple logo. Does a little thing. I don't know what that is. It's got a little weird pin in it or something. Let me go back. Well, never mind. I don't get that. What is that? Is that some stop motion thing, or is that a Wallace and Gromit thing?
It looks like a mechanical switch or something. That's all I came up with.
Yeah. They do it at the end of both of these videos. I don't know what it means. All right. I thought I'd just ask because you guys are the experts. I like Wallace and Gromit. All I know from that is cheese.
Wallace Gromit.
There's a new short coming out this month. I can't wait to see. Yeah. That's part of his promotion. So yeah.
And it's funny. We were watching the NFL as one does pretty much constantly on Thanksgiving week, and saw the Apple ad. Which when it starts out is a little weird because the guy is watching his family unwrap Christmas gifts and it's all really like this. And then his wife says, "Honey, put in your AirPods." And he goes into hearing aid mode and now he can hear everything clearly.
Did you see the long version or the short version?
I just saw the one on TV.
The one on TV barely makes sense. The long version,
of course.
I guess it makes sense. It's kind of like
there's a 2-minute version which you are not going to see on the NFL,
and it is just a work of art.
It's hard. It is at your heartstrings. Yeah. Someone posted it on something and said, just try not to cry. And I was like, there's no way I'm gonna cry. Oh yeah, because they leave in the long version. I was like, the little girl playing her little instruments as she grows up.
You just have to watch. So if you get the whole experience, it's kind of one of those. And for anybody who says they can't tell a story in 2.5 minutes, I mean, it's kind of an up level. Not quite the level of up, but it's like that. I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures, and by the end of it, you're going to be like. So
and then I wear hearing aids normally, like professional, highly expensive hearing aids from Oticons, but I've worn Resounds and Starkeys too over the last decade. And there is a big difference between the AirPods Pro 2 do have a hearing aid mode. My wife said, "Mom, maybe I should do the hearing test." And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Go ahead and do that. That's built into the iOS 18. And then the hearing test gives you a curve, which is then applied to the AirPods. But as I mentioned before, there is a significant difference between what the AirPods do and what real hearing aids do. I think the AirPods probably are as accurate, if not more accurate, because they've got better speakers, better microphones, and so forth. But they seal your ear, which real hearing aids do not. So with real hearing aids, you've got a little speaker in your ear, but you still hear around it. So you hear everything around it, and the hearing aid is just amplifying the voice. When you put in the AirPods, it's a little, at least it was for me as a hearing aid wearer, a little claustrophobic, because suddenly I'm sealing out all the sounds and relying entirely on the AirPods microphone and speakers for everything. And that's a different experience for some people, especially if you've never worn hearing aids. It probably won't seem weird, but it isn't, I think, necessarily a direct replacement for hearing aids. It's certainly a lot less expensive. I bought two so that I could get through the whole day, because of course the battery life is not as long either.
Yeah, I had only one bad reaction to it. I'll keep it very, very short. Like I was watching it, then I wanted to look for more information on it. So I was doing like a Google search on news. The number of like news articles and commentators that are like, what's great about it because it's anti-woke. Like, hey, I gotta compliment Apple for doing a pro-family ad. Like Lord. A revolution is here.
Does this have to get into everything?
Exactly. It's like, what is wrong with you?
What I did notice is how many. It was really a fascinating thing. Within days, how many family members I talked to that talked about, I'm thinking of getting the AirPod Pro. I mean, my wife was talking about it.
Well, that's what I meant when I said, Lisa said, I should do the hearing test. That's really good.
I mean, that ad just nailed it. Like it was, and Apple does that about once a year. They do something where you're going, oh, do I need that?
Yeah.
So really well done.
It was a beautiful ad. It did effectively. I thought it was interesting that they were spending so much time and so much money promoting a fairly small feature, but I guess
I was going to say the exact same thing, because Apple has done an enormous number of really cool holiday ads. And of course they show off Apple technologies, but the Apple technology is more in the background. The foreground is, again, the teenage son who is maybe not quite connected to his family, and you think he's just moping off doing his own thing, but actually what he was doing was shooting a holiday video that showed everyone in the family how much he loved them. I mean, the iPhone is incidental. It's prominent, but incidental. This one, I'm not complaining about it, but this was unique in that it was a holiday ad that was also specifically a promotion for this specific piece of hardware and this specific feature.
And I think with the changes in the laws, I think one of the things is there's a lot of ground to be taken right now. Like, sure. And so I think that there's a huge market that people are going to get something, and it's not going to, people who don't have the money or don't have the insurance that can pay for the $5,000 version, they're looking for something under $300 that they can put in that helps them. And a lot of them are people who are borderline, like, they think they can hear okay, but they're not ready to buy a quote unquote. I think it's less about whether it competes with the hearing aid, but I have family members that I know that should be wearing hearing aids, but they're not going to buy a quote unquote hearing aid.
That's the real selling point. And
I think
real hearing aids are thousands of dollars.
Well, but not just the money. Cheap. It's their mental
stigma.
The stigma to it, and being able to just throw an AirPod in and be able to hear everything a little bit clearer, I think is a real, I think that's pretty valuable to people. It's a lot less expensive. People can't afford it, but it's also a lot less stigma in their head. It shouldn't be, but it is. And so
I want to get all existential here, but this is the post-Thanksgiving episode, so we have the time. So I'm just going to say we talk about technology here. We love it. It's fun. But there is this question about, like, what if technology is a means to an end? What if technology makes people's lives appreciably better?
Right.
And that Apple ad really encapsulates, and I think it's good for lots of strategic reasons and branding reasons and all of that. But I think most importantly, it's Apple saying, this is our technology making your life better in a very relatable, human, common way, right? So many people have various levels of hearing difficulty, and it's not the only way they're doing it. And and there are lots of other things you can get done with technology, whether it's productivity or personal stuff. But like this one story lets them not only, look good and market their products and all of those things, but it tries to put down an explanation about like how a product can actually make your life better. And honestly, that's refreshing in the year 2024, because a lot of the hottest product categories are solutions in search of a problem. And this is not that.
And I think that what Apple does with these ads, these holiday ads specifically, is what they're really good at is showing you something that has you feel the value that their product adds to your life, right? It's mostly visual. They're not telling you why it makes a difference. They're not telling you all the features. They're going to give you something that has very little very, very little speech, very little text. I mean, look at the script on this one. It's like 4 words, and then I'm going to show you a bunch of things. And as you watch it, you're going to feel something, and you're going to feel something that is directly related to the value that the product adds to someone's life. And I think Apple does that probably better than anyone else that I've, I can't, I was trying to think while Jason was talking of other ads that I can think of that are that good at it. And I would go back to another app, Apple ad. I'm not sure how many other ones make that kind of difference.
Yeah. And also it comes from such a good place. Like, ordinarily, particularly as a Gen Xer, I would just like roll my eyes, go, every time like $1 trillion company says, we care about humanity, we care about people, our most important thing is, but when Apple talks about, when Tim Cook talks about how health is the most important mission that Apple has, they back it up and you absolutely believe it. And that's why I think that this commercial really is an outflow of not just, hey, this is going to be really good PR for us, or hey, look, this could be an interesting way to sell more AirPods, but also really the promotion that we want to be able to do things that we are proud of. The famous phrase that Steve Jobs used to get John Scully to quit Pepsi and come to Apple, like, do you want to continue selling sugar water to kids, or do you want to change the world? And a lot of companies aspire to that, but they don't put in the work. This is an example of Apple like absolutely believing in that this is an example of them really believing and showing you that you're not a fool for thinking that they think that these things are important, that they want to do things that they could be proud of.
Yeah, I guess really that's the point. Is it's not really just advertising a feature, a small feature of AirPods. It's, don't you feel good about Apple? Aren't they doing good stuff? It's a good company. I feel good. And
in a world in which like you 2 or 3 years after you buy like a car, suddenly you're ashamed of it because of like what the company is known for. It's like, it's good to know that I just spent $2,000 on a Mac. I'm not going to be really, really upset by what the CEO does 2 years later.
Right. Yeah, and they're not very. I mean, you're not going to see Lenovo do an ad for how Lenovo's making the world a better place. You might see Google do it. You might see Microsoft do it. The big tech companies can do it, but that's their realm. That's their thing. You're watching MacBreak Weekly, and that's what we talk about. Apple every Tuesday with Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell. We're glad you're here. Apple Replay 24 is live in Apple Music. So
time again.
It's that wonderful, magical time of the year. So if you listen to a lot of Apple Music, you can listen to the same songs again. Is that the idea? What is the deal?
Well, it's everybody loves it. It's the quantified self, right? It's telling you what music you listened to this year, and they've got like a video that is generated for you with a montage of what you've listened to during the year. I find it interesting. It's skewed for me because like they're the playlists I listen to while I'm writing, and so those are always high on the list. But it's kind of fun to see. Like this year, they were like, "This is your number one artist by month, number one song by month." And if you like those kind of stats, I do. Spotify does it, so Apple's sort of following them, and it can be fun.
Well, let me just go right into my Apple Music and replay and share my year in music. Are we excited? I'm turning the sound down because I can't. Obviously, we'll get taken down the minute we play any of this stuff. But let's just see. By the way, I'm using that great iPhone mirroring. Oh, stop it. Never mind.
It anticipated you were about to do a content match, and the internet said, "No, Leo, not today,
not
tomorrow,
you.
not ever."
Not you, Leo. No. Apparently, I have to log in to my Apple Music in order to do this, which I am logged in.
Also
That's
interesting,
why.
Apple still does this on the web. You actually can't do it inside the Music app. It takes you to a web page that they've built, which I still think is
now
kind
I've
of
done
weird.
it. Now I've done it, and I had to pick up my iPhone. I couldn't do it in mirroring because it needs the camera and all that. So now I've done it. Here's my replay. This is your life. Was it? It's thinking. Again.
My while you're doing that, my top artists are it's kind of cool.
I listen to how much music did you? I listened to 31,448 minutes of music.
Where did it say that? I don't know where it said that.
That was the first thing. My longest listening streak, 18 days in a row between Mel Torme, Baroque music, and Katy Perry. Here's this. This could be embarrassing. Out of 602 artists, one stood out. Peter Gabriel. Yeah, I've listened to him quite a bit. 570 minutes.
It's understandable.
That was my top
his new
album of the
came
year, actually, in terms of minutes listened, was I.O. But I listened to a lot of that as an album, right? Because I listened to that as an album. But I believe for like the 6th straight year, my number one artist is the 1975. What can I say? I like them. They're good.
You've told me about them, yeah. Boy,
great.
Peter was my top artist 2 months in a row. So this is kind of fun. You're right. This is fun. I thought it would just be a playlist. You played 1,130 songs, but one was my anthem. Now I want to know what your anthem was. My anthem was Cracks in the Wall by Amaranth's Cove. No, it's not my anthem. I promise you. That's
27,950 minutes of music listened to. That is a lot. I do listen to a lot of music.
I listened to more than you did, though. I had 31,000.
Where is that? I don't see it.
It's in the video, actually, the first video that you generate. I had a 27-day listening streak. I didn't know I was doing streaks in Apple Music, but apparently I was.
They should put that on the watch.
I see that's
streaking.
Okay, can we say that, like, after spending so much time talking about how nice Apple is to care so much about health, I don't like the idea of any social media companies praising you for, wow, you just completed your 12-day Reddit streak, or wow, you've been listening to Apple Music every single day for keep it up. For whose benefit?
Every time I open Carrot Weather, it yells at me because I haven't opened it in a while.
Yeah,
shut up.
You buy it for abuse.
Shut up.
The product. That's the product.
I like. It's got one stat that's fascinating. Is are you one of the 100 an artist's 100 top listeners?
Wow.
So like I am in Bob Mold's top 100 listeners, which is kind of
surprise.
Fun.
Mold,
I am.
really?
Yeah, he's my number 2 artist. I listen. When I'm writing, my Bob Mold playlist is my number 1 playlist. So, but that's kind of funny, right? Because that's within all of Apple Music. And my anthem is, I think there's something you should know by the 1975. Of course it is, right? Because that's why I listen to that on repeat all the time, forever. And that's just how it is, I guess. I don't know. It's fun. I think it's fun. It's and that's why Apple is doing it, is because Spotify did it, and they're like, oh no, people are having fun with Spotify. We can't let that stand. We have to have fun with Apple Music too, and so they threw it in there, and it's fine. A bunch of apps do this. Overcast, actually, a popular podcasting app by Marco Arment, just added this feature as well. And I've had a lot of people sending me their Overcast list where my podcasts appear 3rd or 4th in their list of favorite podcasts. It's just like. Nice. Thanks, but not too much.
I'm just happy to know that the top genres I like to listen to are, can you show my screen? Rock, hard rock, arena rock, pop, and pop rock.
All right, well, we get you. My top 2 genres are alternative and adult alternative. So
yeah, you're older than me.
Mine indie rock, yeah.
Mine's alternative rock, pop rock. Pop
rock and then pop. Yeah.
Story checks out.
This is fun. You know what? Okay, I take it back.
Take it back.
It's fun. I did enjoy that.
I can definitely see
memory lane.
I can definitely see my daughters. I've been hanging out with my daughter a lot, and we trade playlists. The two of us trade playlists, and I can definitely see the influence on my playlist. It's like Wilt, Noah Kahn, the Luminaires, Ella Jane, Haley Hendricks, like some stuff that
she's got good taste. You don't knock that. She's got
great taste. I mean,
Isabel has excellent taste.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah,
I thought I had some good gift ideas in here. Yes. Thank you, Andy Yanako. You can now wear the Apple running shoe emoji. Designer Jose Wong's Shoe One, $219. Does that look like an emoji? I guess that's the emoji on the left. Yeah, I guess it's the same. I thought it was going to look like a clown shoe or something.
Yeah.
It's just a regular everyday running shoe.
It's interesting because it's a double ripoff. Not only are they like ripping off Apple's original art for the emoji, but he's also ripping off like the New Balance shoe that the emoji was based on.
The emoji looks like the New Balance shoe. You're right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I was trying to figure out if this was like for real, but it turns out that this guy, he is one of those designers that like will do like a limited drop over and over again. So if you do a search for like, you will find that, oh, here's a shirt from him, here's a whatever from him. However, if you go to the site that's linked to from the like Verge article that I found it from, the page has gone 404. So I don't know whether
out.
He has ceased and desisted.
Either they sold out or was so ceased and desisted.
Ceased and desisted.
But so that's what that caused me to like want to go to that his Instagram stories feed and say, okay, it's not as though that was just like a parody. He has like dozens and dozens and dozens of shoe boxes stacked behind him, but there is like at least like 4 or 5 actual pairs of these shoes like in evidence, like in the shot. So it's not as though he had one made up just for this joke. But
some lucky child in Nigeria is going to have a whole bunch of running shoes pretty soon. Not the only copyright issue. A Brazilian company says, hey, dudes, we own the iPhone trademark.
Yeah.
A little late, but they are going to trial on this thing.
Yeah. I don't know why. This is legitimate. Like, it's not as though they're pointing out that they had their paperwork filed long before. And just like Cisco also had an iPhone product, just like a lot of other companies had an iPhone product. And Steve just simply said, you know what? We're just going to go ahead. We're going to figure out that it's going to cost us more money
Steve
to delay
knew
this.
That's right.
Yeah,
he knew
and we figured that they're going to go away in time, or with encouragement of money, or with threats of how much money we can spend.
It seems like there's some. I guess Brazil may not have the same statute limitations that the United States does. So
the Gradiente iPhone was launched in Brazil in 2000, 7 years before the iPhone. They had leaflets that they used to promote the phone in 2000. We sold 30,000 units in a few months. However, due to a dispute between Gradiente and another Brazilian company, the iPhone trademark was only granted to Gradiente in 2008. Oh, this is going to be a little sticky wicket. A year after the iPhone was introduced. By that time, they were no longer selling phones. So Apple has decided to. Yeah, this may not actually work, although it is in Brazil, so you never know. They've been battling in court since 2013.
Yeah, there's a quote from the company that basically saying that, we just don't want people continuing to say that we ripped off this idea from Apple. Yeah, it's probably not just that, though.
That is, though, I know this because of my dispute with Twitter.
Right.
There is something called reverse confusion where people assume that TWIT named itself after Twitter, even though Twitter came later. And our trademark predated the existence of Twitter. And so that's actually the biggest, my lawyer told me this, the biggest payouts in lawsuits have come from reverse confusion, where a small company, people assume, you ripped off the big company because you copied their, and it wasn't the case. So it could go, that's in the US. I don't know what Brazil's laws are, but anyway, interesting. When are we going to get a new iPhone SE? It's over 1,000 days old, says Mac Rumors.
Spring, right? Isn't that a spring release?
Oh, is that the skinny one?
No, this is a spring release, but rumored to be Apple's first modem, Apple built modem in an iPhone.
Experiment on the SEs, yeah.
Also interesting in that part of the rumor that got my attention was that it's an SE, which means that you can expect it to be like a sub $500 phone, but it also will run Apple Intelligence, which implies that it won't run an older processor. If nothing else, it has been like almost 3 years, which means that this is the only current iPhone, the SE, that still has that thick like bezel at the top and the bottom. Like it looks like an old iPhone. It does not look like a modern thing. It's been getting my attention because I've been this year. I changed a lot of the tools that I use for what I do and a lot of my workflows. And so many times I've thought, oh my God, if only I had Ulysses on my Android phone. Like at this moment, my life would be so much easier. And so like wheels in my brain are thinking that, well, you don't actually own an iPhone that does Apple Intelligence. So what if you were to buy the iPhone SE and write a bit about it and then sort of carry it with you just as a host for like iOS apps or the iOS versions of Mac apps that you use? Because the idea of running Apple Intelligence on an inexpensive phone would A, be very, very interesting, and B, would also sort of encourage people to not think of Apple Intelligence as just something that you get if you spend $800 to $1,000 for a phone. Because remember, Gemini and OpenAI, they will run on nearly anything with a pulse, because although Gemini does have a run on device aspect to it, it can go run to mama up in the cloud if it doesn't have enough compute power on the device to actually do it. It would not be good to have a digital divide of that kind where you don't get any AI features unless you spend top whack for a phone. So I'm glad that I hope this rumor pans out, because that would be a really interesting version of the SE.
I wonder if this is where they're going to dump that processor that's also in the iPad Mini. What is it? A17 Pro from last year, and it's on the old 3nm process, but they apparently have a big bucket of those processors that have been made that they need to put in products, and so they might stuff it in there because that's the base to get it over the hump to being Apple Intelligence on a phone.
A lot of times those processes are almost free because they're the ones that didn't perform. They didn't perform at the level that the ones that needed to go into something else. And so they're just kind of, as Jason said, I don't know if they're sitting in a bucket.
Fetch them from the bin.
Yeah, the question is just if that process is still running, because it was a dead end process for TSMC, and if they want to retask that factory into doing something else. And I don't know enough about chips to know what plausible thing that is, but it's possible that they literally ran off a bunch of these and Apple has collected them and basically binned them from other products, and they're going to use the excess on these smaller selling products like an iPhone SE and an iPad Mini. Well, I don't know, I don't know the details there, but that seems to be what's happening. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's what they do.
Does the SE sell that much more poorly than the big brothers?
I think so.
I would think it would sell better because it's less expensive.
Particularly internationally, where Apple's competing with Android phones, and the iPhone's not the de facto phone for kids, for instance.
I think they do want something that's available for parents to buy for their kids if they don't want to spend a lot of money on something that they're going to break. So I think that makes sense. I think a lot of Apple users, you go in thinking you're going to buy something basic, and then you're like, oh well, that's only $100 more, and I'm going to use this for a long time, and next thing you know, you spent $1,600 on a phone.
Not to mention donuts and the Simpsons tapped out. That can really add up. Speaking of chips, according to Mac Rumors, according to the Elec, but that's in Chinese, so they've translated. Apple has ordered M5 chips ahead of the late 2025 production. The next chip is already in order, and I bet you Apple said, "Give us all the M5s you can make."
Yep.
Well, I guess they have to because no one else uses those.
I think that, well, they took up a lot of the factories to do it. And the thing is when people, this is a good example of a rumor that happened. I mean, it probably is happening, but when people say Apple pivoted in fall for a fall, for a November release, just remember this thing when we said
it takes years.
Yeah, years. Yeah. I mean, the design of that chip was done a year or two ago, and and that's the length of this tale.
So the new Star Wars show Skeleton Crew came out yesterday, and my friend Todd Vaziri, who works at ILM, said, it's funny when you work on a project in secret for a year and a half and then suddenly everybody can see it because he worked on Skeleton Crew. And I thought this is exactly what the people at Apple feel like, where they are working, depending on where you are in the funnel at Apple, you are working on the news of 2025 or 2026 or even 2027, like not even in R&D. Like if you're a chip designer, what are you on now? The M7? Like it's a years long project. I know we talk about it here, and that's why it's so frustrating when you see these articles that are like, Apple turned on a dime and changed their chip strategy in 2 months. Really? It's like, that is not, Apple Intelligence happened pretty fast, but to say that the chip that is driving Apple Intelligence was designed for Apple Intelligence is not true, because that chip had to have been in process for a very long time. I do think it's funny as Pat Gelsinger leaves Intel that, and I don't think Apple, Apple's prints are on the gun or anything like that. But when you think of the current state of Intel, it is interesting to think that maybe the best chips in the world are being designed by Apple and fabbed by TSMC. When you consider that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was very clearly Intel and Intel. But we've come a long way, and these cutting edge fabs that TSMC is building, and they're building them for Apple's chips, and that's the state of the art right now.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's a good point, because there was an interview a couple of weeks ago with some of Apple's chip engineers on a podcast. I'm afraid I don't have the citation in front of me, but what I remember is how excited they were to talk about how, like, originally they were working, like in 2016, 2017, of course they were working on AI, but they were working mostly on machine language for neural engine chips that were mostly there to power like computational photography on the iPhone. But they told a story about how, like, then in 2017, like Google Research published that paper on transformers that totally changed everything. And they started to, like, not like they were designing for a future product known as Apple Intelligence, but they thought, oh my God, this is really, really cool. Like, when we're designing more new neural engine chips, let's design it to run so that it would be very, very capable of doing something like this or running these kind of models. And that was like the foundational research that led into Apple Intelligence. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about Apple only talked about Apple Intelligence chips this year, but even at a grassroots level, they'd been thinking about it for the past 7 years.
Well, this article from Mac Rumors will actually presage a late 2025. Apple has pivoted from the 3 nanometer process, or the 2 nanometer process, back to the 3, because in fact, that's what this M5 series is. It's a 3 nanometer chip. According to Mac Rumors, Apple's decision to forego the 2 nanometer process for the M5 is due primarily to cost considerations. But the M5 will have a lot of new features. This is a good article talking about those features, including TSMC's system on integrated chip technology, which they say is a 3D chip stacking approach that enhances thermal management, reduces electrical leakage. So there are some new features in the M5, even if it is not the 2 nanometer process. And watch for those articles in a year. They pivoted away from the
failed.
2.
How dare they? They failed at the you can't do a chip process shrink every year. I mean, it doesn't happen.
2 is pretty small.
I mean,
the only thing smaller than 2 is 1. You can't do 0 nanometers.
I made a joke about going to picometers or whatever, but somebody told me they actually are going to angstroms. They're going to go to angstroms instead.
Yeah, they are.
Well, I mean,
isn't that amazing?
A single nanometer is tens to low hundreds of molecules thick.
Yeah.
Like, amazing.
I still remember a conversation I was having with like a chip designer, like I think it was even 10 years ago, saying that they're starting to run into problems where electrons are too big and too slow for what they want to do with chip design. And that they're having to do a lot of like very creative problem solving to like package the sort of power and features that they want to have for the kind of tasks that they're being contracted to do.
There are 10 angstroms to every nanometer. So we are now going to the 30 angstrom design, everybody. Get ready. We've got plenty of headroom. I don't know what happens when you get to 1 angstrom, however.
You're pretty close to a molecule thick. You know, you're a couple molecules thick at that point.
What is the definition of an angstrom? It is an angstrom is 1/10 billionth of a meter, 100 millionth of a centimeter.
6,000 angstroms is the wavelength of red light.
The width of a hydrogen atom is 1.1 angstroms. Oh my God! So we are basically at 20 hydrogen or 30 hydrogen atoms.
Yeah,
that's
atomic
amazing.
level stuff.
Yeah, and I guess Moore's law is continuing, but at some point, don't you get down to the quantum level? You have all sorts of weird quantum effects.
I mean, but a lot of the Moore's law stuff, that what we've seen is that it's been things like they went to multi-core designs, and they broke the cores, and there's CPU cores and GPU cores, and there's specialized cores, there's AI cores, there's like they and now we've got this. They're talking about their 3D chip stacking, so be able to be more efficient. So the processes keep shrinking, but remember, amazing. Moore's law isn't just about process shrinks; it's about the speed of the chip.
Number of transistors on it.
The density and all of that. So there's other things to do here, but it is amazing. I mean, I was reading a story about sort of where Intel went wrong, and one of the things is that they held off on the UV lithography longer than they should. They were skeptical of it. But this is the amazing thing. Like, chips are made by projecting light because we don't have tools small enough to make chips. So we have to project ultraviolet light, and we have to use ultraviolet because we need the little frequencies that'll go right onto it's amazing. Just
I think there was an episode of Connections years ago that basically talked about how essentially Gutenberg's printing press started the chip revolution, because essentially making chips is all about how fine detail can you print on a surface.
Right.
And it's like that was one of those ideas.
Yeah. So now, in hindsight, Apple's move away from Intel looks to be pretty prescient. Intel, in fact, continues its troubles. Pat Gelsinger, the CEO who was brought in to save Intel, has announced he's retiring immediately.
Yeah,
Not next month.
Well, they were going to fire him. And they're like, you can take your retirement package or we'll fire you. And he's like, I'm retiring right now.
I'm out.
But
I'm out of here.
it's not just, it's funny because we think about it in terms of Apple leaving Intel for Apple Silicon, but the real move was the founding of Apple Silicon, because that was a case where ARM processors were going to give mobile devices what they needed, and Intel processors weren't. And Intel just missed it. Like they just missed it. And it was, and I mean, there are a lot. Ben Thompson has written about this a lot on Stratechery, I think very intelligently, which is typical for Ben. Stupid Ben Thompson's so smart. But about how, Pat Gelsinger should really not be blamed, because he wasn't there when they made the fatal error. He was trying to solve the problem that was too late to be solved, is possibly the case. But the mistake didn't happen before he was the person in charge at Intel, because they just missed so badly. And now the question is, are they going to stay as one business? How do they deal with the fact that the U.S. government has tried to give them a lot of money so that there's an American company making chips, but they're not really as good at making chips as they used to be? TSMC has eaten their lunch there. And what's the board going to do? Who are they going to hire? And there were some rumors about Johnny Srouji from Apple, but I think would be crazy. I think he's already turned them down, and I don't know why you would take that job. So it's an interesting question about the future of Intel. But yeah, Apple, it's good not to have any eggs in that basket right now.
Yeah, it turns out this has been a long time coming. Morris Chang, who's the founder of TSMC, has written his autobiography. And according to the autobiography, Tim Cook met with Chang in 2011, already 13 years ago, kind of miffed at Intel, and Chang said, yeah, we should talk about making chips for Apple. According to the book, Cook was left unimpressed by Intel's contract manufacturing capabilities. He told Chang that in a meeting, and that was the beginning of the Apple moving to TSMC back in 2011.
And that's Intel's fatal flaw, right? Because, the problem with Intel is that they're a fab and they're a chip designer. And so Apple came and said, we have an ARM chip that we designed, and we want you to make it. And Intel was like, nah, we're not into that. You can use our chip. And that's really they should have, and Gelsinger fought against this, I think, for a while, but they should have split into two businesses a while ago.
Ben Thompson's been saying this for a while.
Yeah, a fab and a chip designer.
Intel's business model was integrated, where they would design and build. Yeah. And in fact, that's exactly what Gelsinger said. We're going to split this into two parts: a foundry, and the designer and the manufacturer, the fab and the foundry. But it just was too little, too late, I guess.
Too late. The real question is the American government, right? Because the U.S. government, the CHIPS Act, and all of that. And so who knows what's going to happen in the Trump administration? But there's this feeling like we don't really want a Taiwanese company. And TSMC is great, but the fear is that China invades Taiwan and our chip making capacity is gone, which is why, to be fair, TSMC is also building factories in the US as a part of that deal. Yeah. So, but Intel, Intel one of these stories.
Got almost $8 billion under the CHIPS Act.
Yeah, but they have to follow the rules is the thing, or they have to give it back. And that's one of the challenges, is how are they going to invest in fabs as per the CHIPS Act in order to keep that money? If they're pivoting to design and not to and away from fabs, which is what Gelsinger was trying to do, the board pivots away from that. Do they give the money back? Do they try to spin it out? I believe there's a string attached where they can't actually divest themselves of their fab business. They have to keep ownership of a high percentage of it. It's a mess. It's a mess.
And on top of everything else, I think the speculation is that it's going to take 2030 until there could be a meaningful chip production capability inside the U.S.
Yeah.
And that is like how many administrations between now and then, and it's going to have to be mature leadership that basically says this is an important thing. It will not be done on any one administration's watch. We have to make investments and make assurances and make alliances to make sure this key strategic capability is within the United States by a certain timeline whenever it happens. Remember that China at some point, was not a manufacturing powerhouse. They made it a government priority saying we're going to make sure that we get manufacturing here. When sanctions basically cut them off from American chip design, they said, okay, this stinks, but we're going to have to learn how to design, steal, manufacture our own chips. And now they're finally in the position where they can start making stuff that is completely homegrown, and now they don't have dependency on other countries necessarily for that manufacture. So you can't put people on the moon as an executive order and expect to be on the grandstand greeting people walking on the moon 2 or 3 years later. You basically have to design the cathedral, approve the cathedral, put in the infrastructure for the cathedral, and be pleased that 30 years after you've
putting a cathedral on the moon? Is that what you're doing?
Musk says he wants it on Mars first to prove the viability of it.
It's very small, though. It's only about 80 angstroms. Exactly. So hold back.
Or 12 different shades of red as it would go. But you know what I mean? Like the people who basically decide, okay, a cathedral goes here, knew that they will not live long enough to actually see this thing be built, but they have to realize that that's not my job here. My job here is to make sure that I set up the machine that is inexorable in its forward progress, that will not be ended like three years before it's done. It will be ended when it's actually finished.
And of course, the United States has become the shortest term planning country ever. Yeah. We don't think more than 3 months.
We're kooky that way.
It's true. Although there are some examples like this, the space program stuff started, Trump administration started it, Biden administration continued it, and that's what I was going to say is this needs to be like that. There were little pockets in the government where there has been continuity between these various administrations, and if we are serious about America's chip making capacity, this needs to be one of those areas where there's consistent behavior, and we'll see whether it happens or not.
It's that uncertainty that is causing all the angst.
This is why career government workers, they're the backbone of keeping every country working. The ones that
there's 10 angstroms in each angst, I believe.
Thank you.
It's also why sword rattling is not like China's making all this noise about the fact that they may take Taiwan or they're not going to rule that out or whatever. It's just generating trillions of dollars of movement, that around them. It just seems like such an unforced error. It's
not unilateral. We're doing the same thing.
We do the same thing, but it's a good example of them going down this path of saying all the stuff that scares everybody. Companies moving out of their countries, and there's all this movement that they've created because of their threats, and it's a crazy thing to do.
What a world. What a world. All right, let's take a little break. When we come back, your picks of the week. So, gentlemen, start your engines. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Anatko from GBH in Boston. When are you going to be on GBH next?
Not this week, but next Thursday at 12:45.
I always ask you that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. IHNATKO. I have no idea how to spell it. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. Got something exciting going on this week, as always?
I'm having a chat with Matt Levine today, right after the show.
Oh, Mr. Cashfly.
He's got a podcast that he's putting that he's
I'm going to be on it. You're going to be on it sooner than me, though. I'm
the test case. He's just making sure it works with me, and then he's ready for you. So
I think I'm doing it in January, so that's exciting. Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, the Cashfly podcast.
Yeah.
And office hours, anything to report?
You're going to continue to see us test. Right now, we're testing HLG. We were talking about this HLG versus PQ. It's a little bright right now because we're figuring out some color correction stuff. So you're going to see, but we're still every day, we're just answering people's questions. We've got, of course, an evening show on both Monday, that's the extra hours, and on Thursdays, which is the rundown. But every morning for an hour, we have some, about 150 years of expertise that sits down and answers random questions about media production, and which is and then one of the things we've gotten really good at is we have this great chat that is all tied into what we're doing, and we're using it more because we realize there's all these experts that are in the chat, in our chat, that are that really know a lot, that are from all these broadcast companies and post companies and so on and so forth. So it's now, even though there's 6 or 8 or 10 people in the panel, there's also another 50 to 100 that are doing stuff that we're kind of incorporating into that conversation. So it's you're going to see us keep on evolving that as we go forward.
Quite exciting.
It's fun.
And from 6colors.com, Jason Snell, you said you took a little time off for Thanksgiving, but the 6 Colors never sleeps.
Well, I mean, we were a little sleepy. I was very happy to see that a couple articles got posted while I was away. It was a quiet week, but
is it just you and Dan Morin?
We have a weekly post from John Moltz. He writes a links kind of funny links column on Friday for our members.
Is it a secret what John used to be?
It's not. It's an open secret. He's fine. We talk about it. John Moltz sometimes is the Macalope. There, I said it. But sometimes he did the Crazy Apple Rumor site for a long time. He writes under his name and the other name at Macworld now, and he writes a nice fun thing. And then Shelley Brisbane and Joe Rosensteel also write sort of occasional posts for 6 Colors, but it's primarily me and Dan, so it's kind of a 2-person operation.
Yeah. The latest episode, Upgrade 540, validation for Shower Jason. I'm not sure I want to know.
It's a good episode. Well, I actually we had a whole thing, and you all will understand this too. It's that troubleshooting brain that you have if you're a tech nerd, where somebody has a problem and they come to you, and we've seen so many mistakes, so many problems with tech, and you know this from your radio show. That is actually a perfect example where you built a perfect troubleshooting machine. And there's turn it on and turn it off. Why don't you restart the computer? I did that over the Thanksgiving break, but it can be like Shower Jason is, I'm listening to a podcast in the shower. I can only listen to podcasts when I shower and when I walk my dog. Those are my listening times. And my friend Stephen Hacker was telling a story on this podcast about how he and his wife's Apple Watches both suddenly had battery life problems, which is really weird, right? That they both had it simultaneously. And I knew that he changed his Wi-Fi network last week to a different set of hardware. And I literally reached out of the shower to the phone and sent him a text saying, have you checked the Wi-Fi? And he was the guest on Upgrade yesterday, and that's hysterical. And he tells this story, and then he says, I think it is the Wi-Fi. And that was my validation for Shower Jason, that I was like, because there was a little thing that ticked in my brain, and we all had this, where it's like, what changed? What changed? And I just thought, we all know that mobile devices, if they have trouble connecting to a network, whether it's Wi-Fi or your cellular network, if you're out in the woods or something, your phone will get hot. Like it is it'll crank up the power on that radio to try and make a solid signal. And I thought, what if his new Wi-Fi base stations, the watches are having trouble connecting, or they're not seeing one, but they're seeing the other, or they have to crank up the power in order to compensate, and that's draining the battery essentially invisibly. And I think maybe that is actually the answer. So, but it's, this happens. Like
there's something about the shower. It's my theory that the heat is opening up blood vessels and making your brain work better. There's something.
It could be, or even the isolation or the focus. Like if I'm not listening to anything in the shower, that's where I am brainstorming. Yeah. And if I am listening, it's because I want to focus on something other than the shower and just get through it. But anyway, so computer nerds know what I'm talking about. That we all Thanksgiving is a perfect example. You all get told time to do some troubleshooting, and some of those problems are actually really, like, my father-in-law had a whole problem where his mouse, he said, sometimes was giving a context menu when he clicked instead of a regular click. And like, what, he didn't say context menu, right? He was like, a menu appears when I'm clicking.
The pop-up thing.
And I observed this, and I thought about it for a while, and I thought, what I think is actually happening is I think that as he's using his mouse, gradually over time, his hand is just sort of sliding to the right, and then he doesn't realize it, but he's right-clicking when he thinks that he's left-clicking. I think that's actually, but again, it's just because I've been doing this for so long now that I have. And then he said, Jason, it's not working. The mail isn't opening right. And I did Command Q on Apple Mail, and nothing happened. And I said, well, let's restart this computer. And then I walked away because I was super confident in that. And then a minute later, he shouted from the other room, "It's working now. Thank you." I was like, why don't we turn it off and turn it back on?
This is how you get to be known as the miracle man in your family.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, a little programming note about our old friend Rene Ritchie. I watched a long video from him.
Me too.
He has moved to San Francisco. And an even more exciting note, he's got a new girl who moved with him, Callie Lewis, better known as Luria Petrucci. Rene Ritchie and Luria are an item. Congratulations. It's so great to hear it. And welcome to California. Rene Ritchie in San Francisco. We're going to have to figure out a way to get him up into our attic studio. I'm just really happy. So if you're a Rene Ritchie fan, he's still working at YouTube. In fact, probably that's why he's in San Francisco now. It seems like that's a better place for him to be than Montreal for working at YouTube. And his channel is there at youtube.com/Rene Ritchie, and you can read his update, or listen to his update, I should say, there. So good on you, Rene and Callie. I'm very happy to hear.
Two of my favorite people in the world. So
yeah, aren't they?
Two of them.
It's like,
up, you know.
Wow, that's so cool. I was really happy to hear that. I have my own little personal YouTube channel, which isn't very active. You know, every once in a while I'll do some gaming, but it has been active in the month of December because we've been doing the advent of code, and I have been live streaming, which is a crazy thing to do. Live streaming the coding. These are start at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, when the Advent of Code challenge comes out in the first 25 days of September. So get it? It's an Advent calendar. And it's been a lot of fun. And 3 of our stalwart real programmers from the club, Cy Faze, Paul Holder, and Darren Oakey, have been getting on saying, Leo, you might want to check that parenthesis there. It seems misplaced, shall we say? And it's been very helpful and a lot of fun. So we'll do that again. I guess I'll do it again tonight, 9 p.m. Pacific, for day 4 of the Advent of Code. They get progressively more difficult, which means at some point in the next few days, I'm going to hit an impossible wall. I'll be like that saber rattling against the soccer wall. And I will have to go to bed before I actually solve that. But this is kind of fun. I do it in Emacs and Common Lisp, and we get the chat going with it, and we also get some really fun people popping in a little bit. So just thought I'd mention that. YouTube.com/Leo Laporte. Our picks of the week coming up, and Doc Rock, who is in the Discord, says, don't make it too expensive, guys. You just spent a lot of money on a 3D printer. All right? All right. Doc Rock, we're going to get you some inexpensive picks of the week.
Oof.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Jason Snell, yours isn't going to be expensive.
No, I mean, you got to have a Vision Pro, though.
Uh-oh.
So I assume you've already spent that money, and that's why your budget is so small.
Cost. Yeah,
I just wanted to mention this. So Simply Piano has been out for a while. Like, it's a great iPad app to teach people how to play the piano. And they just announced a Vision Pro version, and I got to try it. In fact, just this morning, I tried it out. And it's pretty amazing because it will, like, if you have a keyboard or a piano, I sat down on my piano, and it has you, like, calibrate its piano to your piano, at which point, as it's teaching you how to play the piano, it's lighting up the keys. And actually, it shows you the finger notation floating on your hand of like which finger is which finger for the like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Do you play the piano already, or?
I want to make a joke, a Simpsons joke here, and I'm not going to do it. Yes, I took piano lessons as a kid, and so I still sort of know how to play the piano. But
I feel like I should. This is the next thing for me. As an aging brain, they say it's very good to learn an instrument.
Well, Simply Piano, I mean, even on the iPad, it's very clever because it uses the microphone, so it'll have you play along and it knows when you're playing the right note. But on the Vision Pro, it will, it's marking up your hands and it's marking up the keyboard with the lighting it up. And if you don't have a keyboard, you can actually take a flat surface and play it like a keyboard. It'll lay down a virtual keyboard for you using the Vision Pro, and then you can play those virtual keys, and that will work too. Very clever. As an education app using a virtual overlay, it's a really interesting idea for an app that's already, I think, a very successful iPad app. But I love that they're trying it on Vision Pro. And my 20 minutes with it this morning, I was really impressed. It looks like a great way for people to learn how to play the piano.
Very interesting. I do feel like that would be good for my brain to learn to play and I think if I were going to learn an instrument, it would be the piano, because then you could play every other instrument, right, with a synthesizer.
It's true. Get a USB keyboard and attach it to Logic or GarageBand, and then you've got every instrument ever.
Every instrument.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my project after the advent of code. I'm a little busy right now. Andy Anako, pick of the week.
With holiday shopping in mind, one of my favorite little decorative items, like Apple Mac related ornaments. There's a company called ClassicBot that makes these beautiful little figures of classic apples. They've got the Happy ClassicBot, which is like a Macintosh classic,
cute.
Which comes with the ADB keyboard. It comes with a little font DA mover suitcase. Comes with a little mouse. The iBoy, which is amazing because it looks like a classic iPod, but it also has that magnetic attachment so that you have you can put up legs on it, you have arms, you can position
it's
earbuds.
Mr.
You can
Potato Head for an iPod.
yeah. And I just noticed that they just are taking pre-orders on an Apple IIe, and I'm like, oh, I kind of gotta have that one. I have the ClassicBot and I have the iPod, the iPod one, and I can say that they're not dirt cheap. They're like $50 each, but they're a small company that do small.
What are they
runs.
made out of?
Very, very hard, plastic / resin. Okay. It's very, very solid. The details that are carved in there are sharp and precise.
Cool. Yeah.
When you get it, that this is a very, very well-made, well-designed product. It's not just, we just made a 3D print of something and then we just throw these things out. No. These are professionally manufactured. They're nicely boxed, like it's from a real design studio, real company. And I've recently found out that it really is pretty much a one-person operation. I think I was reminded of it because you posted on a Reddit forum with a discount code for Christmas. If you use the code Xmas2024, you will get a discount on your order. The problem is, the only hitch is that he is based in the UK. So I'm recommending it now because if you want to get it as a gift for somebody else, and it is a really nice gift for an Apple friend, it will take a couple of weeks to arrive. Also, maybe you're going to be hit with some shipping costs, but don't be afraid of it. I ordered both of these when they came out, cool. And every time I dust that shelf and I put the Mac in a different position, or I have I have the iPod interacting with Alex's action figure from Star Wars. It gives me pleasure every single time. This has been a very good investment in joy.
Very nice. Happy ClassicBot from classicbot.com. Designer toys, figures, and geek culture. I guess it's more than just Apple stuff. They do.
They got other things. You can also get a little display that has 3D versions of classic Mac bitmap icons. Again, it's worth checking out. Again, you can see the love and you can see the determination to create a really great product. Good. And all this entire product line. I'm very happy to support them.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. Alex Lindsay, excuse me, your pick of the week.
So I didn't need this, but I kept on looking at it, going for a lot of the years, I really like to have a desktop charger. I have a lot of devices that I'm charging, and I just wanted something on the desktop that had a nice display, and it told me what was still charging and how much is it actually pulling. And so this is from Anchor. You can see I bought it on the 21st. So they didn't send it to me. And it went on sale. That's what turned the corner for me. So instead $169, I was like, no, that's too much for this. At $109, I was like, I'm short some chargers. I got to move some chargers around. It's really nice. So it's a GAN charger. So it's going to do things pretty quickly. Maxes out at 140 watts. So it really is able to charge just about anything you need. It's not something you put in your bag. This is something
I kind of want.
But it's also not a charger that you would go traveling with, which I kind of wanted. I very specifically wanted something that I wouldn't cannibalize.
It's desktop.
It sits on the desk. It does the thing it needs to do. It's very. I don't know what
What's
it is.
the knob do?
The knob lets you. There's some selections that you can make. So it'll change.
Slow down.
No, it lets you go through each one and see how much it's using, and so there's some data there to figure it out.
Anchor does
over the top
stuff.
But Anchor's really just cornered the market of great chargers and great batteries. I use a lot of their stuff.
We did years ago when we were still doing the new screensavers. We had somebody come on and talk about gallium arsenide technology and how it was going to be a revolution. And so far, it's only been in chargers and wall warts and things like that. But still, it's an interesting technology.
I won't buy a charger that isn't.
Yeah, GaN.
Like it's like, why? No, there's no reason to live that way.
Yeah.
So it's just
like a savage.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Alex. I have a pick. Thanks to Scooter X. Thank you, Scooter X, who posted in the Discord. You can now put Marathon on your iPhone. The classic Marathon games are available on the App Store. They have all 3 classic Marathon. Now, there's a history of this because we played Marathon like crazy.
Oh, man.
Back in the middle 90s on the set of The Site, which was the NMSNBC show.
We played it at Mac User back in the day.
Sure.
Multiplayer. And that's actually one of the...
do a LAN party with
And so one of the best things about this, according to Bungie, and this is all due to the people who've been keeping the code alive and porting it and all of these things. It is apparently cross-play compatible. So if you've got iPads, Macs, anybody who can run it's on Steam as well, who can run these things, apparently it is cross-play compatible. So you could do these amazing, some of the best network play maps ever made, especially Marathon Infinity just was mostly about the multiplayer
This
maps.
was the multiplayer game we played like
just so good. So good.
I was told, Karsten Bondi, my producer for many years, told me, we all got together behind the scenes and decided to gang up on Leo in Marathon and all fire our rocket launchers at him at the same time, which blew me straight up in the air.
We used to, when I worked at a game company, you had to, in the early days of Marathon, you had to restart your computer and hold down the shift key to get rid of all the extensions because otherwise you wouldn't get full frame rate.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we get about 6 o'clock in the evening and we all be working and suddenly hear someone go dong. And then they're like, wait. Dong, dong, dong. You just start hearing just going around the thing.
That's exactly what happened.
I'm compiling. You got to wait for me.
I think they had to ban it actually eventually at Tech TV because
we had that. We would use the conference call and speakerphone mode in the office so that all of us who were playing were on speaker with each other because it didn't do audio or something. And it was always great when you'd shoot somebody with a rocket launcher and not only on the speakerphone, but you could actually hear them screaming out.
That was me.
Out in the cubicles somewhere. It was
me.
The Roman Loyola, who is now my editor at Macworld, actually, because we were... Mac User was in Foster City. We were right by the San Mateo Bridge, and several of us lived in the East Bay. And for non-Bay Area people, trust me, commute evening eastbound on the San Mateo Bridge, it just backed up and backed up and backed up.
Yeah, you didn't want to go
home. And so I had, for a while there, I had a window. We also had like a webcam. We would go check the traffic. Roman would go to one end and look at the backup, and then we would decide, okay, let's just play some more because we couldn't go home. Like there was too much traffic, so we would just keep playing. Those are good times. And the Marathon map, legitimately, I mean, not only was this what led to Bungie getting bought by Microsoft and doing Halo and doing Destiny, but they were groundbreaking. They were Mac only, which was amazing. But the multiplayer with the maps, and there was a map editor that you could get. They put so much effort into those multiplayer maps being good. And they were, so you could play Capture the Flag or
so much
or
fun.
King of the Hill, which was hilarious, or my favorite, Kill the Guy with the Ball, where you got a little skull and then you ran around and they tried to kill you and you won by time. Literally, it was like first person to hold the ball for 5 minutes wins. Amazing, just good, just really good maps and good gaming. Great
play
game
for hours. And the problem was we were all married at the time, and one of our wives would call, and the goal was no one make any noise. And so you'd be talking to your wife and be like, yeah, I'm going to be on my way in a second. And then someone would fire, or they'd fire a missile. And then it was like that in Uncle Buck, like,
but honey, why do you stay so late every night? Are they really working you? Master Chief mode is 99 cents. HD mode is $2. Enhanced Reticule's $1. It's free with in-app purchases. You can get some tips and so forth, but I think basically they're playable for free.
They did a demo that they are Bungie. I think this is all an open source project, because the coolest thing that Bungie did was they open sourced these before they were bought by Microsoft.
Right.
And so I think this is all an open source project, but
by Dustin Wentz.
But Bungie is they have if you look for it, they did a trailer for the new marathon. I don't know when it's going to come out, but that came out like a year ago or a year and a half ago, and
it's unclear. Yeah, I mean it's a console game, although I think it's going to be on PC as well. Yeah. But they're reviving that marathon IP. But it's also great that they're embracing the classic stuff, which is awesome.
And thanks to Wizardling, there is he's passing along this information. There is a marathon server. So if you don't have friends, you can play.
We hammered that server one time. There was a MacBreak where this is early on MacBreak where I said, hey, we're all going to go to this server and play. And these poor folks that play all the time, suddenly there was like 300 people that showed up out of nowhere and started playing. And they were like, you're ruining our server. So it's
don't
really
do
good.
that.
No, everybody. It's good, but it's a good server, and don't do it all at the same time. And don't tell everyone at MacBreak you're doing it at 2:00 in the afternoon. And like those are the things that cause
LHOWON.org.
Yeah, and really using Marathon Infinity is if you want to do multiplayer, that's the it's got a small one-player campaign, but it was made for the multiplayer maps. It's the best experience for that.
I think based on that,
they were boasting like the frame rates are apparently really good. That they did some great work. The whole team it's the Aleph One team that kind of kept the flame going with the support of the people at Bungie. So it's awesome.
That's really, really nice.
And really is like proto Halo, like right down to the fact that there are many things in Halo where if you play Marathon, you'll be like, like that. Oh, I see. That's where that came from. Yeah.
Yep.
Search for also some of the artwork. I can't think of his name right now. He's a matte painter that did all these incredible concept art. So if you do Marathon game concept art, you'll see these incredible paintings that he did that kind of also expanded out. Anyway, we're really into Marathon.
I think I won the pick of the week this week. Thank you, Scooter X.
Oh, man. Well, we just need to do an episode where we play Marathon.
Yeah.
That it needs to happen.
Hey, we should do that in
the
TWIT club
event?
A club?
Yeah, we should do a club event.
Oh, we should.
Yeah, I'm in
for that.
I'm in.
You can't all aim the rocket launchers at me, though. Okay,
Thunderdome. That's what we need.
No, we're going to do that, Leo. It's going to happen.
John has to make it so. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you need a water boy for those kind of multi-person games? Because that's probably what I'm
not play, Andy? Do you not?
Not really.
We'll kill the guy with the ball. You can have the ball.
I can. I can be the AV person who's running the displays.
Andy can be the cheerleader from the sidelines.
If you have the ball, you don't shoot, right? You just run. You can do that, Andy.
You know better than I would.
You just run. Actually, you just walk. When you have the ball, you don't get to run. You have to walk.
I'll tell you this. Like I've been writing like 1,000 words at least 1,000 words every day, like since I was like 18 or 19. I don't have carpal tunnel syndrome. I don't have any like injuries or anything like that. I still type as well. Yeah, and but the thing is, every time I try to play like a really fast action game, like my hand kills for like 4 minutes. I realize that if I keep doing that, maybe I won't be able to type without pain.
No. You have to build up those muscles. So it's all. It's just it's weightlifting for your thumb.
You just want somebody in the game who's easy to kill. That's fine.
Not me this time. Not me, buddy boy. A lot of fun. All right, we will do that. If you're a club member, watch for an announcement because we will do a marathon. Marathon. How about that? Jason Snell, sixcolors.com. Thank you, my friend. Always great to see you. We'll see you back here next week.
Good to be here. Yeah, great.
Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. And of course, if you want to hire office hours, the office hours legend, 090.media is his day job. Although I don't know when exactly he shows up for that, but no, you actually do. You're going to do a lot more travel with 090, right?
I am. We're doing some stuff we can talk about more somewhere in the future. So yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
And thank you, Andy Anako, WGBH Boston. It's great to see all three of you. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. We stream it on those platforms, but watching live, requires you to be there when we do it. And honestly, it's a podcast so that you don't have to do that. You can listen and watch whenever you want. Audio and video available at our website, twit.tv/mbw. If you go there, you'll see a link to the YouTube channel. Great way to share little clips. If you've got a friend that maybe you played a little marathon with back in the day, a Roman Loyola perhaps, just clip that, send it to him and say, game on, man.
Yeah, baby.
It's also a great way to share MacBreak Weekly with friends. After the fact, you can also subscribe in your favorite podcast player. And that's probably the best thing to do once we've edited it all up. Once John Ashley has cleaned it all up, he'll put it out on the feeds and you'll get an automatic download, whether it's Pocket Cast, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, whatever you use. Make sure you subscribe, audio or video. That way you'll get the latest MacBreak Weekly the minute it's available. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back next Tuesday, but now it is my sorry duty to say, get back to work. Break time is over. Or you could play some marathon if you thought.